May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect tonight's message. Amen. Hello, everybody. What's up, fam? Shalom. Barakalan Sham Yahweh. Shabbat Shalom. Pastor Kofi. Go ahead of the servants of Christ. Mashalom. Bar at Bat at Zion. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. We're going to go ahead and bring on Minister Tamara for this evening. She's going to speak with us a little bit tonight. We thank you guys for being on, and we appreciate you. Thank you. Hello, how you doing, Minister Tamara? Hopefully, can you hear me?
Yes.
All righty.
Shalom, family.
Shalom, shalom. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Hey, y'all. Shalom, Yasharel.
Shalom.
I hope my fan isn't too loud because it's hot.
Oh, no, yeah, I turned mine off and I opened the window, but I'm probably going to turn mine back on. Come on in, though, family. How's everybody doing?
Come on in the room.
Yeah. Come on in the room. Yeah.
Hallelujah. Come on in the room.
Come on in here. Hopefully everybody's doing well. Even if you're hot, hopefully you're on fire for Yah. Praise Yah.
Hallelujah.
Amen.
Hallelujah.
Amen.
Shalom, Sister Monica. Shalom. Shalom, Minister and Training Jenny.
And my T. Jenny.
Hello.
Hello.
Hallelujah.
Amen. Come on in. So we're gonna get ready to jump in a second, but just a reminder before we get in, tomorrow we got another full day as always, I guess. But depending on what you're doing, if you're joining us on the Rising at 8 a.m., we'll be on live. That's Eastern New York time, 10 a.m. Eastern New York time podcast, Shabbat service. We'll keep doing Are You Ready? If you guys know what that is, if you've been with us. 11 a.m. Eastern New York time, we'll have the babies on for Shabbat school. 12:30 p.m. Eastern New York time, everybody in the Northeast region. So we're talking about VA, or basically the DMV, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, Maine, Delaware, Vermont, Massachusetts, all that great stuff. Rhode Island. I don't know if I missed a state up in there, but whatever. If you're in that area, 12:30 p.m. Eastern New York time. And then we're going to have the our talk for those that have been waiting. We were supposed to do it last week. We had to move it back one more week, led by Minister Sharon, where if you want to come in kind of like a little club, or not even club, like a little group, not necessarily grief or anything like that, but, just talking stuff through, it being nothing that's recorded, safe space. If you want to go ahead and talk it through, we made sure that we put that out, by the way, so you should have got a Google Calendar invite for that. You should have seen it pop on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. The link should be on there and everything, flyers, all that great stuff. So you should have all that stuff where we put the link up or whatever. That's actually one of Minister Sharon's links. So she's going to be in charge of it. I'm just coming in to see how everything goes. And I might even just let y'all cook after a while and let her do her things. Because not everything is always my business, in all honesty, unless it needs to be. So, but we thank y'all that y'all will be there. We thank you, Minister Sharon, for stepping up. I know she's been waiting on me to let her step up in that for a minute. So thank you for your patience. But come on in. We got it. Well, even if those are coming in on YouTube, TikTok, we appreciate you all already. So we're going to get it right into it. I'm not going to take up too much of your time or Minister Tamara's time. Thank you, Minister Tamara, for giving us your time again. Please check out Minister Tamara on her page when you can. If you're not following her, follow her already at, really two pages. You got Tamara Yah9, and then you got Tamara _Yah9. So if you can follow with both, it would be greatly appreciated. And check out things that she's posting and things of that nature as she's pressing through and getting through some things like we all are. But we're just going to kind of do a continuation. Next week, I'm going to probably bring back some of the fellas. But we kind of doing a continuation what we did a few Fridays ago, where we had our sisters come on. The week before that, we had our brothers come on. And then last week, I believe it was Minister Tamara. My stuff become flowing in and out. We got so much stuff going on. But I believe it was Minister Tamara last Friday, talking about things as far as things from the perspective of our sisters. And so I asked Minister Tamara to come on and have some more conversation regarding that. And she said it was all right. Well, I made sure to see if the assignment she was given was for her to fly solo tonight, or if I needed to be ready. And so she said I needed to be ready, so I'm gonna be obedient. Praise Yah. And so we're ready to talk. So we talked about a lot of things, and feel free to let your questions be known. If you make your questions known on YouTube, I'll make sure that you get some because she can't see them, but I can. So if you have questions on YouTube, please make sure that you let them know. If you got comments, of course, on TikTok, let us know. But yeah, in talking about these things going on and different things that are happening, different ways that I'm even see still just within our diaspora, Israel, if I can be honest. Sometimes we make it bigger than even it needs to be. Sometimes even within our diaspora, we're having a lot of stuff too. Well, I was watching different live sessions and I was watching people talk about marriage and being single and talking about what a husband was and a wife was and all this, and we still fighting. Unfortunately, we still fighting rather than trying to help one another and grow with one another. So, on that, I know that's kind of a huge place to start, I guess, to put on you. But have you noticed any of that kind of similar stuff going on and things that kind of resonate with you that we should probably be talking about and maybe having less argument about or supporting each other, different things like that, Minister Tamara?
Absolutely. First of all praises to the Most High Yah. Shalom, Yasharel. Shalom, SOC. I appreciate you, Pastor, for even asking me to do this. I appreciate you coming on with me. Like I said, I've had some family revelations go on this week, so it's been a little spiritually busy. But yeah, this is definitely something that I'm seeing in but strangely is like all aspects of the man-woman relationships that we have. So it's not just, between men and women who are of marrying age or, so forth and so on. I've been seeing issues between, just like you said, I've been seeing issues between fathers and daughters. I've been seeing issues between mothers and sons. I've been seeing issues just like in general between the masculine and the feminine. And I think I believe that it's because as we begin to awaken, as we, continue to walk in it, because it is an awakening. You were asleep when you were in the world and doing whatever else you were doing and believing how you were believing and following whatever you were following. You were asleep. You were asleep to who you were. You were asleep to where you needed to be going. You were asleep as to what your purpose, your vision was for your life. So as we awaken, and you know how it is when you need to get up and do something, or somebody needs to get up to go to work, and you like, you know what, it's time to get up. It's time for you to go work, and they irritated with you. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it feels like. That people are upset because you have awakened them. I was perfectly happy being asleep. I was perfectly happy being in this dreamland. I was perfectly happy being disillusioned. I was perfectly happy just, following along with the status quo and going along to get along. But the realization, now that you have awakened me, now that you have put some truth, into me, and now that you got something else you need to be doing, you're like, I don't want to do that job. It's gonna take a lot more. I have to learn a new skill. I have to acquire new knowledge. I can't just continue in, honestly, the ignorance that I was in, because that ignorance was bliss. I did not know what did Peter say? I didn't know I was in sin until I knew the law. So you were blissful in that ignorance, but you didn't know that you were dying. You didn't know that you were, being led to slaughter because of it. So I feel like when it comes to the daughters, because I can't speak for the men, I can speak to the men, but I can't speak for you. But when it comes to the daughters, we need to really embrace what the word says, not what someone has told us that it says. And just like when you explained that the weaker vessel doesn't mean weak as less in value, but it means more precious. It means delicate. So we as daughters of Yasharel need to embrace that. And the thing is that we may be more delicate, more precious in the flesh, but we have to be stronger in the spirit. We have to be stronger in our relationship with the Most High, because we need security and protection. That is how we are in our fullness, when we have security and protection. So for you to fully obtain the security and protection that you are desiring, honestly, you have to get into deeper, stronger spiritual relationship with the Most High. I feel like a lot of us are still caught up in the world ideology that, you're not anything if you're not married. You're not anything because you don't have children and so forth. And the thing is we talk about this often, how there are different parts of the body that are destined and positioned to do particular things, and you need to embrace what that is. If you are supposed to be the pinky toe, be the best pinky toe that you need to be. If you're supposed to be the earlobe, be the best earlobe. If you're supposed to be a strand of hair, be the strongest strand of hair that there is. But don't, and I know for women, we tend to worry about what other people think a lot, and we express ours differently. I feel like men have those same insecurities as well. But I know, like, for women, we often tell me what I'm supposed to do. I don't know how I'm supposed to be. I don't really know what direction I need to go through, or what I need to be learning at this juncture. And if you didn't get a proper or complete foundation as to who you are, whose you are, and not necessarily what you should be doing, but at least what direction you should be going into, you can be, what do you say, led astray by diverse lusts, silly women led astray by diverse lusts because you don't know where you should be going. You know that you should be headed in a direction, but you don't know where exactly you should be pointing yourself. So you listen to others' directions, you listen to other people's doctrines, listen to other people's ideologies about what you should be doing, but you should have asked your father. You should have asked your husband. Point me in the right direction. Order my steps. Tell me which direction to go. So, the one thing that a lot of people don't tell you too when you're on this journey, it's blissful. The revelation is blissful. The depth of relationship is blissful. You will literally start to hear Yahweh speak to you directly and say, do this, move here, talk with this person. He will start to move that way in your life. People won't like it. Because they're going to be like, who do you think you are? Do you actually think that you are hearing from the Most High? Are you serious? Like, nobody's here. But if you in relationship, you can't tell me about my husband because me and my husband are in relationship. You can't tell me about my father. Me and my father are in relationship. So you can't tell me when I am hearing from who is created me, from who is directing me, from who is truly ordering my steps. And now that I'm finally hearing it, you're going to have to work very hard to hear that over anything else. Yahweh's voice has to be louder than anything in your life, louder than anyone in your life. And it's very difficult to stand on because people want you to listen to them. They take it as a sign of respect. You're not going to listen to me. You should have told me to listen to the Father first. If I was going to go anywhere, if I was going to get answers, if I was going to get peace, if I was going to get restoration, if I was going to get healing from whatever it is that's going on, you should have sent me to my father first. You should have sent me to my first husband so that I can get fully what I need and not pieces of what I need. So I think that the problem is that everybody just wants to be loved. They want to be respected. They want, to have their voices heard. They want to feel like they have like an influence over their environment, but when we're not working in a proper standard, when we're not working in a proper culture or context, you have to be careful about where you are walking, who you are following, who you are listening to. You talked about earlier about how people had their reservations when they first started listening to you. And my sister actually sent me your live. That's how I got introduced to you. She does not listen to you. She doesn't come on the Podbean. She don't come on your lives every morning. None of that. I believe she's, been in and out every once in a while, but she doesn't listen to you regularly. But I knew because I had already started developing a relationship with the Father, because I had already started studying and seeking Yahweh's face. I could see him in you. And I knew that you were speaking the truth and moving in the right direction. So people will be like, oh, you just follow behind anybody. I tested that spirit before I got to listening to anything. I did my own research before I just listened to whatever he had to say, because I knew my foundation came from the Father, but I just needed to see if Pastor and I were in one accord, because I knew where Yahweh was leading me to. I needed to know if this man and I were on the same path. Are you on the express lanes? Or are you on the narrow path with me? Are you on the broad path trying to quickly get to wherever it is you're going? Or are you on the narrow path where it's taking some slow and easy and deliberate steps? So I feel like women need to be more empowered and way more confident in the relationship, and more confident in the relationship that they have with the Father. You need to be more confident in the foundation that Yahweh has for you. He did not send us here to be founded on anything else but Him. He sent us here to be helpful for others who are also standing on that foundation. So we have to get out of this mentality of, honestly, I call it like a footstool mentality. This world, it's so false. It's really crazy, because in one instance, it appears that they was like, oh, they pump women up. We love us women. No, you use women for your personal gain. You parade them out there so that you can attract other women into your mess. You parade them out there so you can attract men into your mess, but you actually don't love and appreciate the woman, her purpose, the will that Yahweh may have on her life. And I feel that, and I know for me, this was a personal thing for me, because I'm trying to do the work and figure things out and figure out why I am the way I am. And part of the reason why I'm not married right now is because when I look back on my past relationships, and this was unbeknownst to me at the time, but neither of these men had a mission. And then when their fruits, when I finally started paying attention to their fruit, I saw that they were not producing anything, or they weren't producing what they said they were producing. And I lost respect. I should not have, because at no time or juncture did they tell me I'm a man of the Most High. I'm a husband. I'm trying to do this. No, at no time did I ask, and no time did they offer. That was completely on me. But we need to take more time to see who we are getting involved with, even on any level, be it in assembly, be it in friendship, be it in relationship or marriage. You need to know who you are getting involved with, and honestly, have them state, like, so what you doing? Somebody asked me right now, what am I doing? I am seeking a deeper relationship with the Most High. I am asking Him to infuse me and to fill me with His knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, so that I'm prepared for whatever He has prepared for me. That's what I'm doing right now. They should have a mission statement. They should kind of know which direction that they are going in. They should already have an idea of like what Yahweh is either calling them to or calling them out of.
Yeah, I would.
You lost respect. Could that be because the expectation for them to be the husband? Yes, absolutely, Sister Jenny. Because I assumed that all men were like the first man that I've ever known, which was my father, and that is not correct. And that was very, very incorrect. I'm sorry, Pastor, you was about to say something. Go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say that even in a lot of that stuff too, and that's why. Because a lot of stuff, even when we say a man should have a mission, I think that we don't look for it to be what Yah says a man's mission should be. So even when we say, like, what is a mission? What is that? Everybody, I want a man with a mission. But what does that look like? We don't have anything. Like if you work for the company you work for, somebody was coming in and they said, I want you to interview somebody. Even if you've never done an interview, you probably already know, having been there long enough, there's certain things that I would automatically look for just because of my experience. And you're not going to come in here, right, unless you do boom, 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 bare minimum. Like even if you don't have experience in this job, if you can still show me this and that, we can work with that, because that means that at least you have something to be able to help, that helps to encapsulate what our mission is, right? And it's like, for example, something simple. I was thinking about when you were talking about something earlier. I can't remember exactly when, but it popped in my head. I think it was when you were talking about the security and affection. Uh, First thing that popped in my head, Holy Spirit said to me is, like, for example, one thing that I say to a lot of our sisters, whether they consider themselves to be my spiritual daughter, or just part of SOC, or you my sister, or even if you my big sister, whatever. One of the things I end up saying to, well, men and women, honestly, but a lot of our sisters especially, that I know they don't hear, this is something being mission oriented, is I say stuff like, because I know a lot of them don't hear it, especially if you're by yourself. I'll say stuff like, I'm proud of you, right? Like something like that might seem like the smallest thing in the world, right? But that's something that a man doesn't necessarily think. But also too, once again, a man, and Yah's man is different than the world's man, and then a husband is different than a man. So we look at like simple things as far as like how he make me feel, this and that or whatever. But there's times where I'm probably not, like, I'm gonna just keep it a buck. My wife loves me and all this stuff. Whatever. At the end of the day, like, I know I'm not the most attractive Negro to walk the face of this planet, right? Some of that stuff wears off from time to time. Honeymoon period wears off from time to time. If I'm in my 6-pack phase, or I'm in my beer belly phase, whatever it is, right? That stuff comes and goes. Just being honest, you live long enough, even the strongest of the strong lose 6-packs, and then 6-packs come back. Like, so if you don't have a mission, the mission and the vision has to be something that holds you together, right? Even when it's like love. I say all the time, I don't have to like you, but I gotta love you. You know what I'm saying? Like, we brother and sister, we might disagree on something, and we really ain't really had no disagreement like that for real, for real. I don't think we ever have. But if it came to something, right, if we disagreed, guess what? At the end of the day, even if we hung up on each other, I probably still text you and be like, sis, I appreciate you. You know what I'm saying? Still love you, blah, blah. Like, even if we in our feelings right now, we still got work to do together tomorrow. Let's get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's got to be the mentality, is even if we are off, but we don't have stuff like that. So we don't really have, and then we don't reward that even as well. I talk about that a lot. Like, even if there are men and women that are doing these things, like, what is the reward? And you said something, I was actually thinking about it and getting ready for the night. Once I realized for certain I was coming on, I started looking up some stuff, and I wish I had taken the sister's name down. I was listening to a sister, and she was saying how it's confusing because there's no standard. This is, talking about as a Black woman, from that perspective. She was saying that when she looks at sisters, for example, I think she was talking about Rihanna or somebody. If it's not Rihanna, somebody looked like Rihanna. I couldn't hear the music, but she was just talking as they was showing the other person in the booth. It looked like Rihanna to me. But anyways, she was saying how these women will have music. Apparently, Rihanna was putting together a hit that says, like, be a woman, be strong, be single, blah blah. And she said, but Rihanna's in a committed relationship. She was like, like, it's really weird. She was like, I had to start realizing, and she was young, but she was cooking on some stuff. She wasn't all the way there on certain things, but she was saying some real stuff, and I was just listening. And she was saying stuff like, because sometimes as a husband, that should be something else. As part of our mission is to be listeners. So I was just sitting there listening, like, okay. So I was like, let me just listen to what this young girl's saying, and so she like 19 or so, somewhere around there. She looked like she can't be no more. Who knows nowadays? You can't tell ages nowadays, but she looked like she about 19. And she was talking and talking. And then she goes, she starts mentioning people. She's like Beyonce, Sierra, who did I just say? Whatever. Rihanna. Even though Fantasia doesn't talk bad about it, but Fantasia, she's mentioning all these people, and she's like, you got to be careful about when all these people are saying, because they'll tell you, celebrate my relationship. They'll say, celebrate my marriage. Look at how I'm doing stuff. Look at how I learned how to, not have to worry about men that are trash, whatever. And then at the same time, they'll say, but girl, go ahead and celebrate. And I'm not saying you shouldn't celebrate being single, or nor should you celebrate being married more than being single. That's not what I'm saying. But she was saying it's really confusing, because what's going on is you have lyrics that literally say, be over. And this is what she said, not what I'm getting out of it. She said, you have lyrics to teach us, be over a man. You're more important and don't need one. But then at the same time, you don't tell us how to be happy within ourselves. And when we look at you while you're telling us to be, and we look up to you, we're looking up to you. That's also giving a song saying that you better than us because you have a man. So it's like one of the things I think that we fall short in as a society. And I was saying this earlier, and we talked with the brothers. The brothers wanted the extra session, so we had one last Saturday, and we were putting together rules and regulations for ourselves. And we were like, I don't, and I was saying because, and they were the ones that actually wanted to institute it. And so I agreed, and I said, look, we can't come together. I said, y'all are going to help me put together a list of things, and we're going to send it out to you. And it's going to be in bullet point form at first, but at least if you meet a brother, or if y'all are having issues, we talked about what is it to be a boy, what is it to be a teenage boy, what is it to be a man, what is it to be a husband, what is it when we beefing with each other, etc. And we said this is the rules of engagement, right? How do we treat our women? What do we consider abuse? How do we make sure that we teach boys to already be loving of their mothers, and also help that to turn into love of a wife, right? Like we were talking those things and writing them out, because we have to have something that's a standard. And one thing that's really confusing for a lot of people is, what is the standard? If I say this all the time, if I were to ask a whole bunch of people what is the definition of love, if I ask 100 people's definition of love, I'm gonna get at least 75 definitions. And that sounds like it's great until you realize, well, that means that there's no actual definition. Or if I say, what is a mission of the Most High, everybody will say, well, I want them. And look, I get it. Missions and visions should be tailored to the family that you're in. At the same time, though, like Yahweh has a specific way that he says, do this. And this is my mindset. Let my mind be in you. Don't let a mind, don't let what you think. So what we as men and women, because we've been tossed to and fro so much, we have nothing. So it's hard. So like going back to what I was saying, and then I don't want to over talk, and I'm gonna get you back in there. We're going back to what I was saying. What I was thinking, I was like, yeah, it's important sometimes that I say things to a sister like, I'm proud of you and stuff, like, but that's stuff that men don't even think is part of a vision. And sadly enough, because men don't have anybody that says, I'm proud of you, or, hey, I see what you're doing when you walk in the room, right? And your essence is there. This is what I see in you. This is what stops everybody in their tracks. This is what I appreciate about you. This is what I'm trying to build up and establish in you. I'm not trying to say you got to do everything I want you to do at the same that I tell you to do, whatever you want to call it. At the same time, though, I want you to. I want to show myself worthy of, if I do say something, you actually say, I'll honor it, because I know the Yah in you. Like, we don't have certain standards, so we have a dating mentality, and we have all the stuff that comes in dating, and dating has become more important than marriage. If you've dated many people, if we be real, even if you've been married, let's just keep it real. Most people have been dating more years than they've been married. All right. And I'm not just talking about with a ring on your finger or walking down the aisle. Most people have been in relationships where you still go on dates, even though you're married. Right. And I'm not even saying obviously you should spend time, but I'm just trying to tell people, like, we have a mentality where there's no standard of what is it. Everything that I'm trying to do in my marriage, and everything I'm trying to do in general, as a brother, as a son. I got spiritual mothers. I'm gonna be ringing on my spiritual auntie. By the way, I told y'all she's gonna be coming in here. She still be slipping up saying Jesus and stuff, so don't get on my auntie. Right? She gonna come on here. She getting herself together, amen. But I praise y'all for her. She speaks into my life often. But but yeah, like, certain things like that. Like, she was somebody really opened my eyes just to, like, being, genuine love. Like, even like I hadn't felt, besides my wife, besides an apostle I had once, besides spiritual mother that I still have, that's alive still, and besides my physical mother, I can say, as far as like outright, I guess my mother-in-law too. Forgive me, my mother-in-law. I really have rarely experienced like legit 100% genuine love from a woman. So I've had to learn, what that is even too. So I've it's really interesting experience. Like, and I've told you guys before, to have genuine love from people that at one point were virtual strangers to now y'all are more family to me. Like, when I don't see names, even names I've never met, when I don't see names on here for like a few weeks, like, I start asking behind the scenes, what's up with so and so, who anybody know? Yeah, and so, like, I'm still learning, because I in a sense, I was dating in the world where there never was like, everything we're doing is we gonna roll together till death do us part, married as far as my wife and I. But I'm talking about in the sense that, you know Hopefully nobody takes this out of context, but myself and Elder Maya, and Minister Anais, Minister Tamara, and Minister Sharon, and Minister Joseph, all the way down through all of y'all. There's so many of us now. I be feeling like I be forgetting names. Forgive me, y'all, but we strong out in these streets, praise. But all of us, even if we separate, so to speak, I feel like it's our responsibility. We know that we need to be connected as one group until because if we're in the right walk, even if we don't see each other still the same way, we'll always be connected with each other till death do us part. And that's something that I think we're still learning. So in that aspect, I don't think men even think about, because we've been dating, I don't think we have it in us to think even something as simple as, let me tell her that I'm proud of her, because I want her to know I'm proud of her every day. Let me let her know that I'm covering her, because I want her to know that she's prayed for every day. Let her, know, like, even with my wife, we have Bible study together, even if it's not official sit down Bible study. At some point, if I got something for somebody else, I got something for you. And let me make sure that you know that you're going to get a word that's on another level, because it's not just for today, but we're going to be together past death. You know what I'm saying? Like we say, till death do us part, but we're going to get to the kingdom too and see each other too. So we might as well get ready to see each other there. Like that's the mentality that we have to have just in our brother and sister walk. And I don't think that men or women really think about that. We're just right now fighting to survive, rather than thinking, 5 generations down the road, what are our babies going to be doing as men and women?
And that's because, but part of it's because of all the captivities we've been through. All of those captivities were created to separate us, to keep us broken and apart and so forth. And unfortunately, what did he say? Once we put the shackles on them this way, eventually they'll keep them on themselves, and we won't even have to worry about it. We can be hands off. And the thing is that is what we're doing. We are perpetuating this ideology that women can't trust and expect to be secured and receive affection from their men. Men are not going to receive respect and be honored by their wives. Children are going to be disrespectful. They're only going to be with you for a temporary time. You can't depend on anybody. You don't never know when someone's going to either be taken or choose to flee or get away, and separate themselves from you. So we still have this mentality of, like you said, of this dating, of this temporariness. And it's made us both afraid and just honestly ignorant of what covenant looks like. That's
why I was just thinking of commitment. Yeah.
We always think about it in a husband-wife situation, but I'm in covenant with you.
Yeah.
I'm in covenant with SOC. I'm in covenant with Minister Morel. I'm in covenant with Minister Shanta, because we are supposed to be working all in one accord.
Yeah.
We believe the same. We agree. We are walking together. We're in covenant together. And people are like, oh, that's too much. Ma'am, if you're going to be resting with Yahweh, if you're going to be at his feet, like I say, I'm going to be at his feet, we're going to be together. We're going to be one. We're going to be one accord. We're going to be one assembly. We're going to be one nation. You better you ain't got to learn to like me, but you got to love me, because we're going to be in this
together. Yeah, because we ain't going nowhere.
So we're afraid of commitment.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, because we ain't going nowhere. I wasn't trying to stop you.
Right, like we're not going anywhere. And then people are, like I said, you spoke so much when you said about the fact that we don't know what love is. That has just been pressing on me, and just every time I turn around, I'm seeing how much we do not know, like, what love truly is. I got into a discussion with someone earlier this week, and I'm like, love is not me just accepting everything that you do. That is not love. The world will tell you that. The world will tell you, like, oh, if they love you, they're going to let you do what you want. If they love you, they're going to let you be free and be yourself. You don't know who yourself is. You don't have any foundation.
Amen.
You don't have a relationship even with your father. You don't know where you came from. You don't know where you're supposed to be going. You don't know what you're supposed to be doing right now. I'm not going to just accept whatever you're doing, because, see, I ain't got a relationship with him. He told me what I'm supposed to be doing. He told me, he said, fear me, keep my commandments, feed my sheep, do works greater than my son has done. That's what he said to me. But if you don't know what you are supposed to be doing, you don't know that you belong in this house, You don't know that you belong to this family. You don't know that this is our family creed. This is how we do things here.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know that, I'm not going to agree with everything that you do, because that's not how we do things here. I'm like, sweetie, I know you ain't been back home for a little minute, but that's not how Daddy like things to be done. He wants the dishes stacked this way. He like the bed corners to be like this. He like to sit down all together. He don't eat until everybody at the table. Like that. This is like what we do here. And so again, we been doing it this way for so long. You've been honestly doing it the wrong way. You've been headed in the wrong direction for so long. You are resistant to turning around. You are resistant to be repentant. You are resistant to change your behaviors. But I don't like where I am. Then you need to turn around. You don't like where you are going, turn around. He's like, but you trying to judge me. I'm not judging your path. I'm just telling you, you're not headed in the direction you think you headed. You think you headed to a glory and riches, but you're not. You think you headed towards righteousness and doing what is right, but you're not. And we have to learn how to take this correction. And if you in relationship with Yahweh, you can better take correction. I can better take correction from you. You said some things to me, and I'm like, wait. And I had to check myself. But I can take that correction from you because I know you. I have been in relationship with you. We have been working together. We see that we are on one accord. And this ain't the first time Yahweh said it to me. This ain't the first time he even said somebody like, you need to fix that. This ain't the first time. We want to act like this is all brand new to me. I had no idea I had this problem. Yes, you did.
Yeah.
He's been telling you that. He just sent 2-3 people that told you got a smart mouth. You need to learn how to, check your mouth. You don't study enough. You don't spend enough time with me. You're not allowing me to lead. You're listening to other people when you're trying to find direction. He done been told you that. He been probably telling you that your whole life. But we don't like correction. And again, like I said, I get it. We've been in captivity so long. We are still in a slave mentality of survival because we are tired of people trying to tell us what to do. Every time we turn around, you trying to tell me how my hair's supposed to be, how I'm supposed to walk, how I'm supposed to talk. It ain't never acceptable. I'm never on the side of righteousness, never. So I'm just not gonna listen to anybody. You better get yourself some foundation. You better get yourself some direction because you are about to send yourself into a pit. You're not gonna get thrown into a pit. You about to step in there. Into a pit.
Yeah, and one of the things that you said a great deal of things that are powerful in there. I think it's even one of the things that sticks out to me too is we address each other by things that have nothing to do with us, right? Like it's always interesting that in these fights that I see, eventually they come to this place that's really odd, but it's not odd if you know about Willie Lynch syndrome, but it comes to a place where it's like we compare ourselves to other people's culture and it has nothing, and there's people that don't like us, they don't act like us, they don't believe like us, but we'll compare. And it's like, and I'm not, and look, can I say this? Because I believe, y'all know that I believe people can be grafted in. Y'all know that I have no problem as long as people follow the ways and the will of Yah. That's important, the law, right? And commit and are willing to even acknowledge that there's issues that go on between what people call races. That's real stuff that's there, right? And so as long as people aren't going to act like none of this exists, or we just baffled when somebody mentions things have happened, let's talk about things. Let's try to become better. I have no problem with that. Matter of fact, if we're not careful, we do that with our own confusing light-skinned folk for white folk and stuff like that. Foolishness, right? That being said, though, we will, if I can just be honest, I'm gonna just throw this out there. We might get people frustrated, whatever. It's always weird to me that we get to these places to where even if we don't use the words, the argument becomes, you're not as strong as white men, and you're not as submissive as white women. And it's a really weird, it's a weird dynamic because even if you look at white men and white women, we act like they're not beefing. Like it's a really weird place because I'm like, okay, so like when you hear stuff about black men eventually, what we really start saying about them is they should act white. And when we hear stuff about black women, we start hearing basically, if you pay attention, if you get past some of the rhetoric or some of the word uses there, they really saying act like a white girl. No offense to white women. I really don't. Y'all already know where my heart is on it, but I'm just saying the way that we really say this stuff, what we talk.
It's a wanting to be like white women or white men that we think that they behave like.
Exactly.
Image of them that we have.
Which, if you pay attention, they don't even walk in it, right? So you have all these people who you following, and you start paying attention to their life, and you're like, hold up, like that's not how so and so acts, or they doing this and blah blah, or even they mistreat. And I can't tell you how many sisters I've heard horror stories from, and I'm not trying to say all white men. I'm not trying to do that, but we got context in that, okay? And it's like you hear this stuff, and I'll hear all these horror stories about I went out with a white man, or I went out with a white woman, or whatever. And yeah, it's not everything that you were told it would be, but and if I be honest with you, I was raised as a child to where I thought in some way that I needed to be as close to white as possible, even if it would just be around them and fit in. And you go around them. And I told people I grew up, and it's interesting because in my mind, this is how wild it was. In my mind, I swore up and down that black fathers were never in their sons' lives. I'm not going to act like that's not a problem, because it is. But I swore that was the issue, right? And it is an issue. But when I look back, and I didn't grow up in the rich white neighborhood. I grew up in our neighborhood, but I was the token for a little bit. So I saw some stuff, right? And when I think back, I go, you know what? I had my father. My upstairs neighbor, he had his father. They looked out for us. Right. My friend I was with, he was a Puerto Rican father, but he considered himself to be us, and his wife was us. And really, he was us anyways, right? And they would watch over us, and they would show up when we were hanging around people, and I would look up and I would see somebody's car. And even if they wouldn't check us to embarrass us, they would still be somewhere in the vicinity. And I was like, and my father working 2.5 jobs. I used to always say, and I had to apologize to him all the time, because I used to really not meaning to, but I wasn't trying to say he was bad, but he worked 2.5 jobs, so you don't expect him to be around. But my mother hated to take pictures, right? So any picture of myself, my mother, my sister, my little brother, anything of us from, especially before she passes, but even afterwards, especially because he was the only parent, he had to take it, which means that any basketball memories I have that I can look at is because he was there, even if I didn't know he was there. Like somehow, some way, he found time, even if he was there, didn't even tell me he came, had to go right back to the next job. My memories of before I messed my knee up and everything is because my daddy was in my life, even when I couldn't see my daddy in my life. And it's something that's missing, unfortunately, in our community. But I say all that to say, I think about the white boys, no offense, that's just how we talked back then, that I grew up with, and I was trying to be in a token with and all this stuff, and none of them just about had their fathers. But you never said, they never once in their community, they would never say, baby mama and baby daddy, this and that, even if the mother thought he was trash. I never heard that terminology out of their culture. Yeah, even if they thought that even if they thought daddy was trash. I heard one child talk about their father one day. He was 2 years ahead of us. So I guess he was like in the senior, I was in my sophomore year, and I was hanging out with his little brother and his little sister in the house. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he just starts rambling off. The only time I can remember, he just starts rambling off and going, you know what, like, yeah, piece of S, my father wasn't there, or he's a deadbeat, and you ain't gonna see him anyways. And then he started laughing, and it's like he snapped out of it real fast, and then he went back into what we were doing. And I was just sitting there, and I was like, it was confusing to me because I had never heard, especially like white people talk about that. That was my first experience of being, but then you start thinking about it, like they have more of a problem. And then if you look at the statistics, it actually shows you, even in the United States of America, that the statistics, they're actually worse off in having fathers leave than we are. But in our mind, we think that that's a black problem or an Israelite problem or a Moorish problem or whatever you want to call it. And the reality is that we actually have, whether they're married or not, I'm not saying it's perfect, because I know there's a lot of fathers that are absentee, but I'm saying we actually percentage-wise are better. And that's with them putting crack cocaine in the streets. That's with slavery. That's with us having to jump over the broom. And so I had to go back and I had to start reevaluating my own father. Even though I was raised by my father, I had to go back and say, okay, maybe my, like I know my dad worked this and that, but I got to give him extra credit because according to everything that I thought, and that's a wild place because then I had to actually admit to him and apologize because I had a mindset growing up and then as an adult for a little bit saying, you know what, like my perception of my black fathers was so bad that even my father that had to go through more than others did still was there more than others were, and in my mind I was still, so which means that his son who looks up to him still limited how much I looked up to him because in my mind I still only saw him here while fathers that weren't even here or around sometimes I still saw them here. And I had
that's how they set it up. They set it up for you to supposedly see the good or how great their system is. And I'm like, that system is not great. You think I don't remember when that girl? I remember I was in a gifted program. It was all kinds of students, mostly black, but it was whites, Latinos, all kinds of. And I remember this young white girl who was in class with me, and her mama came up to the school for something. We was coming to get grades, something like that, and that I was black. Excuse me. First of all, you're supposed to be in a gifted program. So I'm automatically assuming that your household is a little better than most because you're this smart, intelligent, in this gifted program. I'm like, I didn't have that at home. And so it was a confusion to me as far as that goes. And then I had a friend, just like you said, I had a friend who her mother and father did not live together. That man all the time. Like all the time. He went to everything. He never missed an event. He came over several times during the week, like with need, constantly in her life. But we have these perceptions. They try to make us perceive that the 2.2 kids and a dog named Spot is not us. When in fact it was. I remember my father and with all the other black husbands and fathers on the block, they used to bowl together. That's how close everybody was. They had a whole bowling league together. They hung out together oftentimes. If one person was barbecuing, the whole block was barbecuing. We were a huge community and family. We definitely had strong black men in our communities, but we have been taught to look at what they were doing on their side of the fence. And we didn't realize that Jehovah was actually protecting us from what was going on their side of the fence. I don't need you to be a part of their system. I don't need you to be a part of how they do things. Because trust me, that grass is not green. That's false. That's some fake grass over there. That grass is not green. You really don't want any parts of that.
And it used to be okay for our mothers too to be like, and I'm not ragging on anybody. I'm saying legit, like mothers. It was okay to be mothers. Like mothers.
To come out of.
Yeah. Like mothers had 9 to 5s and all that stuff sometimes too. But it was all right that like a mother and no shot at anybody. I know mothers, y'all are still grinding and stuff. Don't. Hopefully you get my heart when I say this. Like mothers were different. Like I tell my son that all the time. Like my son be getting away with stuff, and I'm like, and his mother will admit, she'd be like, "Oh yeah, like," and she's tough on him. Don't get me wrong, but she, she'll be like, "Yeah, when we were growing up, like, yeah, you don't do that." And mothers were protected, and you didn't just talk to anybody's mother, like, and everybody, like, there, maybe I grew up in an old school neighborhood even for my time, but we had a big mama. And like there was somebody who was established. There was like a matriarchy. Like this is who it runs this or whatever. And if you was going, if you were going if you were going to smoke and if you were going to drink and if you were going to do whatever, you still had to protect. Like you didn't do that in front of mothers. You didn't do like if I had a Newport or whatever, you ain't smoking in front of whoever. If you was drinking an MD 2020 or whatever, some of that still reserved to be tearing y'all insides out or whatever. But whatever you was drinking, you saw somebody coming through, even if you had the bag or whatever, you still put it away, and you might even stand up, when she came past because like she was somebody who was worthy of respect. And like now we don't even have anything close to that, but like it was something, it was mandatory. And I'm not that far removed. I'm still young, so to speak. I'm only 40, so I'm a 80s 90s baby. I'm more 80s, I guess, but 80s 90s baby. And well, I guess I'm half and half, whatever. But like I grew up where still in my neighborhood, like, yeah, this is Miss Elizabeth over here, and Miss Elizabeth come through, everybody like shut it down, and this is Mama so and so over here, and if Mama so and so, and I didn't even go to church, but that was church mother. So
you cussing and hollering in front of Miss Johnson house now. You better come from over there. She gonna tell your mama. You be smoking and doing whatever in front of Miss Jenkins house. She gonna tell.
Because everybody could whoop you too back then. Everybody might put the belt to you before you even got home.
And I think about it too, like my son, he did not grow up in like the same environment that I did. He did not grow up with having his father in his house, He didn't grow up having a strong relationship with him, even though he was out of the house. And my son would be like, "Oh, you had such an idyllic childhood, like that wasn't everybody's experience." And I was like, "It actually was," but they tried to make it think that it wasn't. It actually was. Like even when, like, oftentimes, especially when men get to complaining about black women took the welfare and just dumped the men out on the street. No, you know that's not what happened.
No.
You know that is not what happened. If we were going to get any kind of bread in the house, unfortunately, we had to fake like you weren't in the house.
Yeah.
We did what we had to do to feed our children. And I remember when it's dawning on me now too, because I remember there used to be a young girl, and like I said, I should see her father all the time, but he did not live in the house. I see now I'm realizing the reason why he didn't live in the house is because mama couldn't get stamps to feed the whole family.
Yeah.
If he was still in the house.
They just started giving fathers. They just started allowing families to get stamps recently.
Right.
They just started that.
It was women, infants, and children. Ain't no man in there.
Yep.
No man involved with that program.
Give that government cheese, all that stuff. You had to qualify for it. That meant you had to have no father. They did that on purpose.
Right, and we're not thinking about when mom used to get that government cheese, or and was getting all them groceries, or she was trying to get two. Why are you trying to get two? Because I'm still trying to make enough for my husband. I'm still trying to make enough for your father. I'm still trying to make enough to make sure that we all get fed, even if I gotta bring him a plate. And because they won't allow him to sit at the table where he belongs, I'ma still make sure that he get fed. So we have to give up this. We don't realize like how much we have to like literally strip away like all of the thought processes and ideologies that you think about women, all of the false ideologies and the thought processes that you think about men. You have to throw them away. We are still under some of the programming, and it's going to take some time for us to undo that.
And that's why that environment piece is important too. I'm sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, no, that environment piece is super important. Because like my father, he admittedly did not have a good relationship with his father. But he consciously worked at being a good father to his children because he didn't have that. He's like, I don't want my kids to grow up and feel like they don't have my support, that they cannot come home, that I am not there for them, that I'm gonna just leave them out there to start. Like, I don't want you to feel any of that. And so he consciously worked at that. So I assume that that's what all men do. But that is not the case. The thing is too is that not all men do that, but a lot more of our men do than we give credit. They're not going to tout the man who, even though he wound up having to be separated from his wife and children because of welfare, because he, so forth and so on, he took a room at the Y around the corner so he could stay close and be able to still walk his kids to school.
Yeah.
Little things like that. And we tend to, again, like you were saying, we are using this world standards to judge ourselves, to judge other people. And the thing is, this isn't our culture. These aren't our standards. And you are viewing it completely out of context. Because if you are still viewing it through their perception about what is success, what is love, what a husband is, what a wife is, what the expectations that we should have of one another, you are still going to be viewing it falsely. And you're going to be heading in the wrong direction. You're going to be heading in the wrong direction. Yeah, the system is wicked, separating families. The craziness about this system is that they like to give you this lawlessness, this duality, this lukewarmness.
That's a great word for a duality. Yeah,
be married and have all, and have these children, and and everybody can have the American dream of living in this house and so forth and so on. That is not how stuff actually works, and they work very diligently to keep it from working that way. They work very hard to sell you a dream and actually doing everything in their power to pull the rug out from under. And until we start realizing, like, you have been lied to, you have been programmed, you need to undo all of it. What you think a wife and a woman is supposed to do is probably 80% wrong. What you think makes a good husband or father is probably 80% wrong. If you haven't come into this truth and really done the study and really gotten into the culture and the context of who we are as a people. Probably got it all wrong. All these women out here just want my money. Sir, they are already making their own money, so that's not it. So what else could they be wanting for? Dig deeper. Dig deeper. All these men they just want to have sex and be out jumping from woman to woman. Dig deeper. It's something that there's a deeper reason as to why he is behaving this way. There's a deeper reason. I only recently came into the realization. So I was in an unrighteous covenant with somebody long years ago. Thank you, how I've been delivered from it. But he used to jump from woman to woman. He had numerous partners, and when I came back into my relationship, when I came back into study with the Most High and so forth, I was like, yeah, so I'm done with it. So, continue to do what you do, but have fun. And he's like, well, you have more than enough to do whatever it is that you're trying to do. You don't need me. And I realized to him, I was like, you have some healing to do. You did not get the love, the affection, the attention that you needed as a child. You are still trying to find it in a woman in whatever way that you can. And you're not going to find it. You're not going to find it that way. You're not going to find it through excessive amount of sex and bunches of partners and all of that. You are not going to find it. You're going to have to do some healing. And I know society done told you, you the big man on campus. You got 20 women, paying the bills for you even. You got any given time, you can call up anybody and get you some. You're sad. It's actually a very sad state of affairs. You are not the man. You are the sad man. Because you are living a life of contention. You are living a life of lukewarmness. You in, you out, you bouncing all around. You don't have any stability. You don't have any emotional stability. A lot of times you don't have any financial stability because this lifestyle is hard to keep up, bouncing around from here and tender. It's expensive to be wandering. It's expensive to wander. Very expensive. But we have to learn how to give up these ideologies that we've been taught. The negativity that they taught you about the woman is false. It's false. That she's a weak, let me stop using the word weak, that she is unintelligent, unspiritual, constantly lost, confused, born completely of wickedness. Like all of this craziness. He's like, it's Eve's fault. She kicked it off. You're right about it. When it came to the sin, she kicked it off. But you could have cut it off. Mm-hmm. So, and if we're supposed to be one, so I messed up, and you came right behind me and messed up, so now we just all messed up. We could have just been half messed up and maybe cleaned it up, but now we all messed up. Because neither one of us want to give up the false ideologies about whose fault it is, whose responsibility it is to clean this up. Mm-hmm. And my thing I've been finding too is like, we don't know how to be friends with one another. We think that is a dirty word. I really don't know where that came from. But you don't know how to be an actual brethren, an actual neighbor, an actual companion with someone without figuring out what kind of gain that you're going to get from it. And I know for me, what I've been thinking, I was like, I know that the partner or the husband that you have for me is going to be somebody. You see, I'm talking to you right now. I'm able to talk to them. I'm going to study with them. I'm going to be able to pray with them. When Yahweh gives me a revelation, when Yahweh gives me an insight, they're going to be eager to hear it because they know where it comes from. They know they have a relationship with our Father, so they know exactly, that came from the Word. That came from the truth. I can see the wisdom in this situation. I need you to be able to be my friend. I need you to be able to be in partnership. We have to walk together. We have to stand together. We have to sit together. But if we can't be friends, we can't be neighbors, we can't be brethren, we should not be getting into a marriage with one another.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, oh, you're not supposed to treat your wife like your homeboy. There are things that you do with your wife that you don't do with your homeboy. But if you walk in righteousness in all your relationships, yeah, you should. She's supposed to be your friend. She's supposed to be your sister, your kinsman. She's supposed to be your auntie, your mama. You're supposed to be able to see all of that in her and feel that need and that urgency to remain in assembly with one another, regardless of gender, regardless of even age. But we have a real problem in Jezreel with being friends with one another. And I think that's part of the huge thing that we just on both sides. I mean, I admit that it's something that I've had to correct in myself, but I see a man in Jezreel, but it's your marriage material. Okay. We can still be friends, but you're not marriage material. Okay, you fine. But that's not how it should be. We're working in one accord, and we're working towards righteousness, working, to be in obedience. We're supposed to be friends, companions. Like, we're going to have to fight together. We need to be friends. Mm-hmm. We have to go through these battles together. We need to be friends. We need to be friends with one another.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the things we actually should work on. Right. A lot of us do need to define what marriage is, but the Word tells you what marriage is. The Word tells you what spouses do. I think about it when they list, when Peter talks about go to this person's house. I think it's like in Acts or Romans, when he's telling some of the other disciples, when he's sending them out, make sure you visit this person here, make sure you visit this house here. He is always mentioning, a husband and a wife duo. They preach the word at this house over here. This couple over here, they preach the word over here. This couple over here, they're going to be able to put you up and make sure that you get to the right people over here. It was never just one person. It was never just a solo. And I feel like our Black men feel like they need to take on so much because so much has been put on you all's shoulders. They tell y'all that y'all not nothing, y'all the foundation, but y'all need to work 120 hours a week and, so forth and so on for you to be able to be anything. You got to be, rule your house with the iron fist and all of this other foolishness. When in fact that we are supposed to be partners, help mates, help each other, help mates. And we're supposed, and the thing is like, you're not the only one that have a vision. Maya has her own vision on her life. Yahweh has its own will over Maya's life. But now that y'all won, his mission for you is her mission. His mission for her is your mission too. And that's how the whole of them even get done and multiplied. That's how the whole thing even works, is because you all are working in tandem, working with each other. The society has us thinking that men and women are opposites. We're not opposites. We one. We halves of a whole. We're not opposites. We're halves of a whole. We're not good versus evil. We are two halves of a whole. That's why we have masculine and feminine. Yahweh works in holiness. That's what he say. It's not good that man be alone. It's not good that man be all in one. For him to be holy, he needs it all. You need that masculine and that feminine for any of this to work, for any of it to work. And we just really need to drop our egos about how great it is to be a woman or how great it is to be a man and really work on, like, what are we supposed to be working on? What is Yahweh's will for me so that we as a nation can get back to him? That's my whole purpose here. I'm not trying to make sure that everybody get married, because I don't think that's everybody's will. He did not promise everybody marriage. He did not promise everybody children. That is not. I haven't found it in scripture. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know it's people that have read more of the Bible than I have, but I haven't found it in scripture. And I feel like we're focusing way too much on. And a lot of times what I see is like people focus too much on what they think somebody else is supposed to be doing. And I was like, I'm gonna need you to narrow down what he had you to do. Because I promise you, if you get your little corner of the world together, if you get your little mission together, if you get your little vision together, then the other visions that are in accord, that are in alignment, that are in right legal standing with Yahweh, those people are going to come so that your mission can be multiplied, their mission can be multiplied, and Yahweh can be glorified. But you got to give up that ego, because it's a servant leadership. It's not a domineering fist leadership. It's a servant leadership. I'm leading you by example. I'm leading by what do you need for me to do to help you with your mission. You ask Maya, what do you need for me to do so that I can help you with this business? I can help you with these herbs. And you need me to wash bottles? You need me to fill some of the tank? You need me to go forage? What do you need for me to do to fulfill what Yahweh has put on your life to do? And she does the same. What do you need from me? How can I be a helpmate? How can I help multiply what Yahweh has planted in you? And we don't do that. We talked about this before in the marriage class about people coming to relationships or coming to marriages thinking about what they are going to obtain. And you need to be going in after what you are able to give.
Mm-hmm.
Not what you are going to obtain from being in this partnership, but what you are able to give to better this partnership. And that's just, we got to drop that ego.
Yeah.
We got to drop it.
And once again, it goes back to, so if we're to talk about anything, once again, it goes back to culture, right? It goes back to culture. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Tracy. I didn't realize you had requested in. We might be able to let you in towards the end. I was trying to actually have Minister Tamara on tonight. No offense, but I know you're probably trying to get in on some of the stuff, especially as far as marriage. I know why. So give us a second. We'll see if we can get you on. I apologize. I just realized, but I was gonna say, because here's the deal. Once again, we're reversing it, and I'm not even saying anything that you say is wrong. But if we're not careful, we'll reverse it, right? When you talk about even being friends, everything's based off of culture, because we don't have friends like everybody else does. See, that's where the confusion comes in. We weren't raised so we were raised in a position, for example, and because of becoming more separate and becoming more in the world, even as we're trying to say we're coming out of it, we don't have our children grow up playing together. Like, that's one of the things that's really powerful to me, is that our children do some stuff together at SOC quite often, and they know each other and they're growing, and we're trying to get more of that, including physical stuff happening where they're coming together more to play in different places and stuff like that. But we don't have our children. So I grew up something simple, like going outside with people that were like me, like-minded, had same parents and stuff like that. And certain things were just because we were around each other. It was known, even if I went over your house had similarities, right? But now we're so separated. We're so separated that we're so separated that we don't even think about, like, this is how I raised my child. This is how I raised my child. This is how I raised my child. So it's hard to even talk about friendship, because there is no environment that rewards friendship or even gears itself or lends itself towards friendship. So we talk to each other differently than the people that are coming behind us, because we grew up in similar things, to where you go to look for your friend. You have certain similar situations. Even though I never went to church as a youth, I knew how church worked, because I was around enough church people that I knew how church worked. Even if I didn't know all the ins and outs, like, I could go to a church service and I wasn't going to be shocked at certain things that somebody else outside the culture would be like, oh, this is how y'all have church. Like, for me, I'd be like, oh, we do this all the time anyways. Y'all just doing it for Jesus or whatever. Okay, cool. I guess we just, we doing it for the righteous reason now, whatever. Okay. Like, and I understood when people talked about modest apparel and stuff. I'd never been to a church service, but I understood in our community what modest apparel was supposed to mean. That was just a cultural thing. Like nobody had to really teach it to me in depth because I saw it every day, right? And I understood that like the higher up a sister went, like we said, if it was Miss Elizabeth in the community, Miss Elizabeth, that was supposed to be the most virtuous woman because she's supposed to have an age on her. So Miss Elizabeth did this, then that's what all the other women were going to do because that's just how we all lived, and that was the respect that was given. So we had this thing where it's like we're looking for friendship, but we don't even look at friendship the same. We don't even look for things the same, or even though we weren't doing marriage exactly the way the Bible said, shacking up was not necessarily the thing we looked at, or just certain things. Right. Even it was a bad thing to just be shacking up. Or yeah, you weren't supposed to be just throwing it out there. Now it is something that's rewarded. And also too, even when stuff that we came up, like for example, we were starting to transition out of certain things. Like you used to hear about the relationship, and I'm not saying, look, I know it's a different time. I know age wise, some people just gonna tell you that somebody's a forgive my language, pedophile and stuff like that. But we had grandparents, great grandparents, depending on your age, maybe even parents, that man was 18, 19, had a job. Woman was 17, 16. They courted for a couple years. They didn't have sex or anything, but they courted. Maybe they did. Who knows? I don't know. But they tried to do things righteous and make sure that they were still pure, and she was still a virgin. He was still a virgin, and it was cute and everything, and it was fine. And he'd show up. He'd carry her books from school or something like that. Like when I was growing up, like they looked at you like you were a simp. Like you were the guy that was okay, but you weren't the bad boy. You weren't this and that, and it's starting to be a transition. And nowadays, it's like we look at the person. We don't realize it until they go and they become the nerd that makes the money or whatever. But we look at the person as the nerd or this and that. But that person was disciplined. That person went to every class. That person was in band. Fine, they were a nerd, but they were learning music. And now now that's Pharrell. Talking about I'm happy and hitting you with joy and all these songs, and you seeing with Snoop and all this stuff. And you thought he was a nerd, but now he's the person that sets the trends. Now he's the person whose clothing you want to buy. But it's like we forgot that there's used to be a culture, and we started getting away from uplifting those things. We started getting away from uplifting righteousness in our sons. So now our sons don't think that righteousness is cool, because even as a family, we don't give credit to the righteousness. Like we give credit to people that are foolish. So people who are people who are doing things like, we have more, man, he dunks a basketball. Look at that, right? We don't think to ourselves, man, he talking about quantum physics and he's 5 years old. We don't even, but that's not a thing but that used to be something where we actually wanted to see that in our community. We're like, oh, he could be the next scientist, because that was something we were looking at as far as culturally. And it used to, and that's the way our culture still works in some ways. We get mad when people from other countries who are us, whether they be Mexicano, Puerto Ricano, Cubano, West African, Ghanaian, Igbo, Mali, wherever you're coming from, South American, we get mad and we say they're taking our jobs and they're taking this and blah, blah, but they do what we used to do. We used to be a community where you would come in the block would be all you. And eventually you would even see everybody would be in the same house. You might have like 25 people in one house. And we make fun of everybody else now, but that's what we did. And we loved each other and we did what we had to do. And nobody knew it was poverty until somebody told you it was poverty, because it was love. And all of a sudden, and if you didn't have, and if we didn't have food, I grew up now thinking we didn't have the best food, but I didn't know it. Like I ate every day. I didn't know any better until somebody told me that. And then it used to be, okay, like, get this, and you're going to be the doctor in the family, and you're going to be the lawyer in the family, and you're going to be the one that's going to have the taxi cab business, and you're going to be the one who's going to be the police officer, the one that works our business. Like it used to be, that's how we went about stuff. And people who are us and have some of those things, now they might be missing other things from the diaspora. All of us kind of have pieces missing, but they come over with that mindset and they say, hey, yeah, you're the doctor, and you're the lawyer, and you're going to be this, and you're going to be that. And even if you're going to be the trash man, at some point, you're going to be the person who owns the trash company that gets all the trash. And they have a mindset of working together, and it's rewarded. So one of the things that we don't even think about, once we were talking about this rising, I think we're not even thinking down the road, what am I doing now that's going to affect something 3 generations from now. Like, we don't have a 100-year plan. Dr. Miles Monroe talked about this. One of the reasons why people used to be upset with him, he talked about, because he would travel the world and a lot of people would let him sit in on their meetings. And he said even in the Bahamas, he was allowed to, he was on, I guess maybe even a consultant, you would call him, when it came to Parliament. But he did this for many different nations. And he said he would talk to LGBTQ plus people, no shade or any of that thing. I'm actually telling you guys that we need to do. I know y'all aren't gonna want to hear this, but hear the context coming out of my mouth. I'm not saying we need to be LGBTQ plus, but there's some things, guess what, that you could learn to do that you should be doing. They're using principles that you should be using and you don't use them. And then you're mad when you're getting defeated. So he said he would go to meetings and you would have people that were LGBTQ plus. And he would talk about, well, the church is going to do blah, blah, and this and that. And church people aren't really going to go. And they were he said they would laugh at him. He said this publicly. You can look at this in the sermon. He talked about a couple of different sermons. He said they would laugh at him. And he would be like, why are they laughing at him? But he didn't get mad like we do and start, he listened. And he was like, well, what's so funny? He said, you thinking about, what's coming up for Easter service or what's coming up for blah, blah, and talking about that. He said, we got to plan this out. That's 150 years out. Like the person told him straight up, like, we're not playing with, your little service on Sunday. He was like, that's nice and everything, but I promise you, this is past your little service. He was like, in 150 years, we already know that we plan on seeing this, because we have a vision plan. We're not messing around with it. And he said that really hurt him, but he said he was glad to know it because it started showing him that we got to be more mission and vision oriented. So we talk about husbands and wives. We're not even thinking about, like, there's people, whether it's your enemy or not, there's people out there who are thinking, and it's commonplace in a lot of places in Africa still, to think about 100 years out. Commonplace in a lot of places in China. A lot of Chinese people think 100 years out just for their personal lives. They're not even thinking about for the country, but if they're doing that personally, what is society? Or what is your society? It's a group of individuals. So if individuals think like that, that means the society thinks like that. And we had to start getting to a place to where everything we're doing is like that. So when my son does things that exude husband-like behavior, he's only 8. Still, when he does it, I start talking to him like I see the husband in him. For a second, we're not going to talk like you 8. For a second, we're going to start talking like you 80, because you just showed me 80-year-old behavior. So in that eternity, right, you just showed me in time, you showed some eternity showed up. So I'm not going to treat it in this moment in time like it's just only this cute, it's nice, and that's what we do with our children. No, you just said something that's powerful. Do you know, like, this rising, we start off every rising, he's got to give 20 minutes or so, and he's got to do 20 minutes as far as things that either going to make him money or things that are like for kung fu or things for study, whatever, right? So I went down to check on him because I thought he wasn't giving his 20 minutes, and I should trust my son. My son can't lie. So if he said he's going to do something, he went to do it. He's downstairs, he's stretching it, and he's doing this stuff. And so I put on stuff rather than him start off watching foolishness. I let him watch some stuff sometimes that I pick. So I picked something about Christmas that we made a couple years ago for the children, a cartoon that we made. And I showed him the YouTube channel thing. And then I asked him about it and stuff, and he said some stuff. But then as I was going to click on something for dolphins for him to study, for wildlife, for nature. And then I saw another video that we had made in the same series, except it was a live session. I didn't want to play the 3-hour something live session. I know he was going to make it through all that. But I showed him the picture because I remember when I saw the picture, it was me holding up. I don't know how many of you remember this when we were talking about Revelation chapter 1, verse 14 and 15, where it describes how Yahashua looks. And it talks about, his feet burnt like brass. So I actually I show him the picture of it with me holding it on the screen. And then we go to Revelation chapter 1, verse 14 and 15. I say, go ahead and read it. So we discuss it. We talk about hair, and we're talking about hair like wool. We both grab our hair, and we talk about the fiery eyes, and we talk about the feet. And then we start getting into melanin, some other things that he knows about. And then I said, so what color is that you see burnt brass looks like? He goes, well, that's really, really black. I said, yeah. I said, so is that what they said the Messiah looks like? He said, yeah. And I said, so does that mean the Messiah is better because he's black? Well, no, it's not better. And then he started going into some other stuff. And I realized like he was already in a position where he had a mind about this stuff, even though I've never really sat down and talked about that specifically. He already had a mind of something that was there because there was a culture, once again, that he was already around enough to where, even though I never specifically broke down, let's look at it, let's read it, let's actually grab our hair, let's talk about melanin. He already had a mind that said, oh yeah, the culture that I'm in, the society that I'm in, the way that people lift stuff up about me, the way that people like how we dress and how we talk and our hair and certain things. It was like, yeah, I get it. And he could talk about it extensively. So when we start talking about, husbands, right, there's a lot of little boys that nobody talks to the husband in them. So we got it twisted. We talk about the little wives. There's a lot of little girls that were never protected as girls. There's a lot of you sisters that are listening today or might listen to this later on, that you had to give up being a little girl because mama needed you to be a grown woman at 5 years old, and all the boys around you got loved like they were little boys, and still get loved like they're little boys, but never get treated like grown men. And so, like, a lot of you even have stuff that comes from, even whether you had a father or not, or sometimes having a mother who just automatically was treating you in a certain regard. So we have to have a culture. That's always why we talk about culture. We have to start instituting something that's bigger than ourselves, and it doesn't get to change. It doesn't get to be, well, we're frustrated today. It doesn't get to be because somebody's running for president, we're going to change what we think. It doesn't get to be because, let's say, I pray not, but something happens to me and somebody else steps up to fill my position or whatever it is. And now that person's there, we change everything we're talking about. Like, it has to be something that's bigger than anybody that's here, no matter how we feel it. And then it has to be something, no matter how I feel. That's when we always talk about, I will bless the Lord as a result of my will. No matter how I feel, I will it, that I will feed this. And that's what I said, even so when I'm talking to my wife, especially my wife, of course, then if I'm talking to, spiritual sister or somebody who's a member of SOC or somebody I'm doing life coaching with, that's why I realize sometimes saying I'm proud of you to a sister is something that they don't get that much, and they always have to do all this stuff, but nobody says, you know what, that was great. Or when a sister, a lot of times a sister might be breaking down and saying, oh, I'm going through this, I'm going through that, and then a lot of times they say something similar, which is something I didn't catch on to the last couple of years, to be honest. They'll start saying stuff like at the end, you know what though, I mean, maybe I'm just asking for too much, or maybe I'm just crazy, or maybe, and just affirming, like, no, you're not crazy. And then literally, like, there'll be a pause, and a lot of times the next thing is thank you, like, just thank you for that, because I don't hear somebody just literally saying I'm crazy. The same thing that daddy would have said to me when I was little, and or he was supposed to be saying, maybe he didn't, but he's supposed to be saying when I was little, and this and that and blah blah, and you going this and all that, and daddy, well, daddy, I'm just acting like a little girl, whatever. And daddy would say, no, that's fine. If that's what you called to be, he would tell you that when you were little, and he would tell you when you got to be a teenage girl, he would reaffirm it even stronger. When you got to be a grown woman, and you'd be like, no, what? Yeah, maybe I'm blah blah. And he'd be like, no, he would speak to you. He wouldn't be your physical husband, but he was in a sense your spiritual husband while being your physical father. He made it a point to tell you, like, no, this and that or whatever. And we don't have something where we reward that on either side. That sisters aren't getting it, but then also we've been so trained to be apart that now the brothers don't even think that it's a prerequisite at all to have that in place, to where if I'm going to be in any type of relationship, I should automatically be the same. And I can't be the same, obviously, but the same type of encouragement that Yah gives should be the same type of encouragement that I give. It should be like mandatory for me. If I'm not able to make her feel like this, I'm not able to make her feel like she's loved in a certain way. Matter of fact, to be honest, because I'm supposed to study my wife, there should be nobody. And look, I don't care if you come by and you a billionaire. I'm here to tell you that when it comes to loving my wife, and I'm not perfect yet, but I'm getting better every day, you're going to have a hard time if anybody tries to come in there, because I studied my wife. Not just study her to be able to tell her why she doesn't know something. I study her to love her like no other man can love her, because she gave me the ability, she gave me permission to do so when she said I do, right? So that's the kind of stuff, like, we don't even perpetuate that, and we don't fight for that. And since it hasn't been fought for, once again, now we start looking outside of ourselves, and we've been looking at other examples of men. We've been looking at gentlemen, but George Washington didn't love our women, so I don't look at George Washington. So I know you might want me to be like the president, but the president doesn't love our women. I know you might want me to be like the first lady, but the first lady doesn't take care of our men. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's and we're going back to that thing. So even though I don't want to necessarily make it about race, and I don't think I have, but I can see how people could take it this way, way. I'm trying to get us to see that we don't have something that's like, this is our standard no matter what. And yes, some of you didn't have this. Sure, some of you didn't have fathers, some of you didn't have mothers. There's exceptions to rules. But up until the 1980s, and even past then, as far as still people being involved in their children's lives, but up to the 1980s, until they put crack in the community, we fought jumping over brooms. We fought Jim Crow. We fought when they had us from trees, hanging from trees. We still had, the percentage was higher. It was like 90%. Through Jim Crow, still 80%, 70% people were married together, right? Fathers in the home with their children. And it wasn't until we got to crack cocaine that we finally went beneath 50%. And even still, by statistics, we're still the most involved in our children's lives. I'm not saying we're perfect. I'm not saying we batting 1,000, but we had all these different things in order and on point. And so, like Minister Tamara was saying earlier, don't be fooled by thinking that it's impossible, because it's not that long ago. 1980 is not that long ago. It's not that long ago that it was an exception, not the rule, that it was an exception that you would have a child and raise that child by yourself. It was the exception, not the rule. I'm not saying that it didn't happen, but it was the exception, not the rule. Multiple divorces was the exception, not the rule. Like loving Yah and being obedient and going on to your workplace and having a Bible in your hand was the rule, not the exception at one point. So we're not that far removed from it, believe it or not. It's and the mind of the devil is trying to get us in the mindset to think, okay, you know what, like that's a long time ago, or that's ancient, or who knows about that. Yeah, that was not that long ago.
I'm like, that was not as long ago as you think it was. It's not as long ago as you think it was. And this is, forgive me, I'm already going to ask forgiveness or whatever for this, because this may seem strange, but you were talking about how, you know, up until the 80s, up until the crack epidemic, we had, you know, very high marriage and statistics and so forth. But I'm going to be for real with you. Quite a few of those people that I know that wound up on crack and cocaine, they still ain't left their marriage.
Oh yeah. They
doing crack together. They homeless together.
There's still people in the street right now. There's still people in the street right now. When we be feeding people out in the street, they come husband. When we be feeding people in the street today, they come husband and wife. They ain't coming separate.
Yes, still together. They not together in righteousness, but they together. They still ain't left one another.
Amen.
Like, so I'm just saying, like, we come from a culture and a history of being together, working together, achieving, surviving together. It made me think about the whole the move as well. And I'm like, we've been bombed. We've been physically separated. We've been lied to. We've been poisoned, like all kinds of stuff. We still working together. We still trying to move in the same direction. Right? It is in our DNA. It is in our DNA to survive captivity. It is in our DNA to remain together as a people. That is in our DNA. And we tend to we forget because you get caught up by the baubles and the pretty trinkets of this world, and you forget about where you came from. And
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I know I just went a long time. I'm not going to go that long. I just wanted to say something on what you just said real quick and give it right back to you. The reason is because of who gives the trinkets. That's why we got to start making our community, and we got to start saying, this is what we look at as stuff, because you said something earlier about, like men think about, you want their money and women make their own money. For real, there's a lot of women that don't care that much about money anyways. And for real, there's a lot of men who actually want to see if you would be down with them without money. So when they admit to you they have money, then everything's fine anyway. So money's not even, but it's like, we got to find out what it is, because we whether you talk about your native side, your African side, your Israelite side, your Moorish side, whatever you want to argue, at the end of the day, we didn't care about this stuff like that. Like, sure, did we have money, but money was supposed to be something backed up by something. Like, even with tithes and offering or something, there is truth to people when they say, like, if you were going to tithe and you couldn't bring what you needed to as far as something you were going to tithe, you could bring it in money, because money is only as great as what's actually there. So, like, we have to have a standard of what's actually there. Money is what they get everybody else to be off of, and they tricked us eventually into believing in it. But that's why we even gave up land, because we didn't think that land was something that could be sold. So we signed sign treaties with people saying you can have the land, not even thinking to ourselves, this is stupid. How you going to buy what nobody can own? But that's not our culture. So when we get back to in the Western land, we owning our land, then you can start saying, okay, on our land, you know, this is a trust. Nobody owns it anyways. Like, you write it in there, you protect yourself. So we had to have some stuff instituted because we're messing it up. Like, we're chasing. The only reason why people think women chase money is because we think that money has value. But if money doesn't really have value like that, because you already have taken care of certain things, then you wouldn't even think that about women. And if you realize that you don't need credit if you got land anyways, then you wouldn't be sitting up there looking for a man with credit. Like, because who cares? That's something you get rid of.
You know, that all comes from projection. That all comes from projection. Whenever I always tell people, whenever you are thinking something negatively about somebody else, look at yourself. Look at yourself, because you are projecting your ideology. And just like when you were saying, like, men are like, oh, women are money hungry. That's because you value money over everything. You value money over relationship. You value money over joy, over security, over faithfulness, and you value money over all of that. And you
attract what you after too. So so if you are after money or whatever, then you'll find somebody who's after money, and you shouldn't be surprised that that's who showed up at the door. Or if you're after somebody who's somebody who's a bad boy, you should, if you the baddest bee, you shouldn't be surprised when the baddest boy, shows up.
That's right. That's absolutely right. But that we have to, get our heads turned on back around in the right direction. And I feel like if this is where we come in. This is where those of us who are now taking in this walk, and those of us that are now moving towards the Most High, we are now going to have to be the examples of this is what real wealth looks like. Real wealth involves a sense of joy. Real wealth involves you standing in your peace regardless of what's going on. Real wealth is when you are walking in obedience, and then you get to reap the rewards of those of you. That's where the real wealth is. All of this, like I said, these trinkets, these baubles, this paper that they keep passing off to us. No, the baddest woman is not what we want. We don't want bad.
Yeah. And look, and watch this. What's the difference between if I gave you 3 pieces of paper and I wrote a 1-on-1 and I wrote a 10-on-1 and I wrote a 100-on-1? Which paper is more important? It's just 3 pieces of paper. It's the same thing. So it's like, but somebody, people just don't recognize how it works. Like, the money is supposed to be a promissory note, but if there's nothing to back it up, it's not even real. Like, and people don't catch that. And so, but that's our life, unfortunately, is we keep chasing. That's why I said they can't be our standard. They can't. And I'm not even trying to just say white people. I'm talking about the beast. It can't be our standard, and that's the problem. Is our standard is everything that's anti-Christ. And if your standard is anti-Christ, then you need to repent, like you said earlier, and turn around. Because if you keep following, you keep saying, why am I getting anti-Yah's vision? Why am I getting anti-Yah's ways? It's because that you facing the wrong way and headed the wrong way. It's time to stop being anti the correct direction, repent and turn in the opposite direction, and then start making your ways. And yeah, you might be addicted to some anti stuff. You might be addicted, just like you addicted to sugar, and you addicted to fat, and you addicted to this and that or whatever. You addicted to some things, and you might need to realize that you have some addiction. But guess what? Even if and look, I'm a video game head, so I had to go through this, even though I didn't go through drug addiction. Believe it or not, your children be addicted to stuff too, so you gotta be careful with that too. But or sugar or whatever it is. But watch this. You might have to go through, when you go through your fast or your cleansing. A lot of people don't tell you this when you fast, but sometimes you go through withdrawal. The only reason why you're hungry is technically, I won't say the only, but the real reason why you're hungry is because you're going through withdrawal. You're used to, even though your body's not even built for it, you're just so used to eating that you're addicted to something going in your mouth. You're addicted to certain brain things, even sometimes exploding, parts of your brain exploding, just so that you can get, literally you can have an orgasmic type feeling. Like people who are foodies, that's what you're dealing with, is when you eat and you go, like that, like that's what's going on with you. It's like you actually you're having the same kind of experience in your whole body, right? I won't go into the in depth of that tonight, but I'm just saying you're having that's what's going on. It's like you're actually having that. They built the food, not got food that's created. They've literally built the food so that when you eat it, you will feel like you have to come back to it. That's why you go to McDonald's. You don't go to McDonald's because it's cheap. McDonald's ain't cheap no more. McDonald's is restaurant prices. We just went to the restaurant and we were sitting there. We were like, McDonald's and all these places should be ashamed of themselves. Like, we eating cheaper here at the restaurant than we would at the fast food place. But it's like, but you're addicted because they've literally manufactured, they've modified, they've created food so that when you eat it, you think of your food like your husband, you think of your food like your wife. Like, you go to the fast food place, like, oh man, when I go here, I can't wait till I get, and you get mad. That's why you get mad. That's why y'all cuss the manager out and everything when your food ain't right. I mean, I know it's supposed to be right, but that's why you cuss them out, because you so ready for that feeling. You so ready for that feeling, and that you're married to it. And when they mess up, it's like somebody cheated on you. Like, that's the feeling that you have, because sex is marriage, marriage is sex. So you're having sexual type experiences. You try to eat the food, and then all of a sudden it's like it doesn't get made the way that you want, and now you have yourself.
What's going
on? Hey. And all of those things, they put them together for a reason. Salt for people that be angry and say, and by the way, you know what? I'm not gonna go that deep into it tonight. Praise y'all. Holy Spirit said be quiet. All right. But I'm just saying, like, you would be surprised. You are what you eat. Just like spiritually, you are what you eat. Psychologically, you are what you eat. And we've been eating stuff that we're addicted to. We're addicted to stuff that we don't have to be even having anymore. Like, some stuff, yes, the white man did, but there's some stuff to where you don't even have to do it anymore. Like Minister Tamara said about Willie Lynch earlier, it's built to where you will keep it going for hundreds, if not thousands of years. That's what they said, is that they had a plan to where if we can get this going with the first generation, they said, we're not even worried about the first generation we capture. They said the generation after that, if we can mess up the first generation, they'll raise the next generation to automatically do what it is that we want them to do. And we're keeping stuff up now that is not the United States of America's fault. Not all of it. There are some things, but there's some things where it's like you could easily get out of. You could make a decision to do. You could come together and live as one, even if it's not on the land yet. There are people, and by the way, some of you have been talking about it. I'm not saying you have to. You got to do what you led to do, obviously, and some of us are still strangers to a certain extent. But there's people who are starting to even be like, yeah, it doesn't make sense that there's a bunch of us in the same city, and we sitting up here talking about we can't afford rent. Like, we might as well get a bigger place, and do something like that. Like, those are things that we used to do, and that was what the point of the exercise was not to just keep engaging in the same thing, stay separate, come together on the phone or in a live session and talk, or go to church, talk about how we ain't going nowhere, but God's with us, and then go right back and do the same stuff. Like, at some point, if God's with you, there got to be something, some kind of change.
Right. See, now you just got me thinking, because I'm sitting here, I'm like, I'm paying below market price right now. But let's say rent running $1,000, $1,200, $1,500 a month.
Oh, there's people on here that be telling me what, 2,500. Some of y'all 2,500, 2,800.
It's insane. But think about it. You got 3 or 4 people who are all paying $1,500 a month. We can afford a 4 flat, a 6 flat. We can afford a 6 flat. I can't afford one by myself, but we can.
You know how much you could do? You could go to NACA, NACA. You could go to NACA, and they could literally get your credit in order and everything for you in like 6 months to a year. You could move into a place and then just move other people in and give them cheap rent.
And boom, mortgage paid,
everything. Happy. But so it's like a lot of stuff out there where we have made it to where a lot of this stuff is impossible, and that's using their system. I'm not even saying come out the system. I'm talking about if you're gonna stay in the system, there's ways of like using it. We get mad at Donald Trump and stuff because he not paying taxes, but why are you paying taxes? Like that was my first response. Yeah. Everybody was mad at him. I was like, why y'all mad? Y'all ain't supposed to be paying taxes. I was like, y'all got the wrong. Yeah. You better figure out what he's doing. And he telling you the truth. As much as you don't like it, because we Republican and Democrat, like, but you might even call him racist. He was telling you the truth. He was saying, like, hey, like, y'all are mad at me or whatever. He was like, Hillary ain't paying nothing either. And y'all got so mad because you were anti-Trump, but he was telling you the game. Like, Clinton is hated.
Like, ain't none of us up here paying no taxes. That's why y'all so stupid. Because ain't none of us up here paying no taxes. He was telling them the game. That's one reason why they got mad at him. But that's one reason why he got mad at him, because he was telling them the tricks of the trade.
Yeah.
He was like, everybody gonna be millionaires now. Hush up, boy.
Well, even with that, they also know the game. That part of it is that not everybody can be a millionaire, but this is when you learn. So when you learn this part of the game, this is when it blesses you. Because let's say Minister Tamara becomes a millionaire. How many of y'all think? See, this is what this is what hey, man, this is what happens, right? Everybody goes, okay, Minister Tamara made it, and if he did it for her, he'll do it for me. But what if he don't do it for her or for you the way he did it for her? Now watch this. But she knows, because of the culture, the poor will be with you always. She become a multimillionaire, so at that point, we make sure that we always uplift her business and sow into her business, so she stays there. And then what does she do? Anything y'all need, I got you. Right. But once again, that's culture. We don't think about it. And that's when you start thinking like that on that level, that's when you start going into relationship stuff. Because see, the relationship is a part of the society. We don't even live like that as a society. Once we live like that as society, then we come down here and we start saying, oh, okay, well, babe, you make more money than me. Okay, whatever. Like, what I need to do to make sure you get to work then. I need to iron your dress. I need to steam your stuff. I need to learn how to fold your panties correctly. I'll fold your drawer. As long as something's happening in here, right? And as long as, and that doesn't make me feel emasculated. So let's have a conversation, because we got to be honest. Let's have a conversation. As long as there's no emasculation going on, as long as you don't feel like I feel threatened, like, we should be fine. Like, I don't mind doing what I need to do if that's what we need to do, or vice versa if we switch over, right? And that's actually what happened with us. Like, I used to do the laundry in the house. I used to make sure that the stuff was clean. I couldn't get the 9 to 5. I was trying, and I'd get one here or there, but I couldn't really get anything. Now, I was still busy. I was still doing stuff in the kingdom, stuff like that. I was still building myself up, and eventually the roles, got reversed to where now I was able to do certain things that I, even as a man, I did feel a little bad that I should be able to do this. I should be able to provide, but we had a vision, we had a plan in place, and it was like, okay, well, if you're going to do this, and even with that, like, there were boundaries. Like, you ain't just going to be out here talking about kingdom stuff, but nothing coming in for a while. Like, at some point, you got to be able to take care of the family. Like, so if that's what you're going to do, to do that. But while that's happening, guess what? If that's what the vision is, as long as we're making sure that everything's straight, I still feel like I'm getting as much as I can. And it was tough for her, because I've talked about this before. There's not a woman on the planet that wants to have to work. I didn't say a woman can't work, but there's not a woman that wants to or not work.
The funny part about it is we love to work. We love it, actually. We like being busy and doing something. I don't want to have to. I don't want somebody to starve because I didn't feel like going to work today. I don't want to have to do without some things because I didn't want to go to work today. I need to be, you know what I'm saying? We have to be on
one of the most powerful things, Dr. Miles Monroe once said something that was so powerful to me, and it really makes sense to me, and I've just adopted it into my lifestyle. He said he was looking at his wife one day. His wife and him, they were working the same job. I think they were working the same job. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I think so. They were working the same job. And then all of a sudden the stuff started picking up with Bahamas Faith Ministry or Bahamas Faith International Ministries, whatever it was, or whatever it is, it's still around. And he was looking at his wife one day, and he said, "You know what, baby?" He said, "You are so talented." He said, "You are so amazing." He said, "You are smart." He said, "You're going to make somebody," he said, "whoever you work for, you're going to make them a lot of money." Then he turned there, he said, "You might as well work for me."
Hallelujah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, and when he said that, like, the light bulb, like, yes, like if I have a wife, and my wife, I'm talking about, if she chose to go back, my wife is working on levels like where she's consulting and making money move for the government on levels that, like, people ain't never seen money and stuff, talking to people in other countries and stuff. So if my wife can do that for the government, why can't she do that for Israel? Why can't she do that for SOC? Why can't she do that for the Ofori household, the Ofori and the Ofori household? Like, why can't she do that or whatever? And same mentality for me. If I'm trying to chase and nobody will give me a chance, and I'm trying to work, and the same thing I'm doing with SOC, slowly not on my own, but starting where we started, and now us having to gradually get stuff together, but building slowly, stuff like that. Like, I was begging and pleading for people to give me the chance to do that. They telling me I'm overqualified to make $200,000 a year and stuff like that because they don't want to hire me. But I'm like, man, I really would like to, blah blah blah. Can't catch anything. And then finally I realized, well, if my wife is doing this, if she can do stuff with Tanksters, if she can do stuff behind the scenes, as far as she's able to do stuff, like I can't put together websites that well, but she can start it. If she can start it, then I can keep it up. If she can do this, I can do. So I start trying to support her in her endeavors as she's supporting me in mine. But that's got to be a community thing. We don't think about that. Like, if the poor will be with you always, like you said earlier, somebody got to be okay with being the toe. And if I'm the toe, as long as you take care of me, like, as long as you ain't gonna let me go gangrene or nothing, then I'm still part of the body. And if the head moves, as long as the head is blessed, it means the body's got to be blessed, but everybody has to come together. And so even in that, like, people have this mindset, and that's one thing I'm really proud of us on. Even like these last couple of days when we've been asking for you guys to step up and help families and stuff like that, and you guys do that on a regular basis when people are in need of help and stuff. We're still, if you're able to, we're going to be asking, soliciting, if you can, to bless a family through Sunday, if you're able to. But anyways, the long story short, we come together very well, and we realize that as one moves, we all move. And if one is going through, we all are going through. And it's really becoming a thing to where, and I'm really appreciated, even sometimes, where even it seems like we might be kind of like really jumpy to protect, but at least we protecting each other. Like, I've been in a lot of places where people don't protect nothing, nobody, and you can see the result of it, right? Like, so I'm thankful to be part of a group that we're really starting to get that in our minds, and really have had it in our minds, to be honest, for years now, even virtually for years. And we've been like, wow, it's time flies. But 2018-ish, 2019-ish, something like that, when we started doing the virtual thing. So we've been going for a minute, even virtually. But yeah, like, just, and even before that on YouTube too, in all honesty. But just, doing those things and becoming better, becoming greater, learning from each other, protecting each other, lifting each other up in prayer. Somebody hears a need on the podcast, somebody blesses them, and seconds later, like, I mean, y'all have been like, so astounding. I really mean that. Like, I've told people this, they don't believe me. Like, I've been in many organizations, churches or otherwise. I've seen a lot of camps move. I've seen a lot of spiritual but not whole or religious folks, and they speak a lot of stuff, but they don't move. And so when I see y'all move as a body, like, it's really astounding, and it makes me want to be better, because I see you guys, being better than anything I've ever experienced. Like, seriously, people don't believe me. I'm serious. I have not felt like disconnected to people, especially people. It's awesome how y'all moves. People who I've talked to but never even shaken their hands yet, or maybe even only hugged you once or twice or something like that. But got it, or seeing you up close once or twice, but at the same time, like, or even when I'll be somewhere and I'm not expecting to see anybody who would know me, and one of y'all would like run up on me, and it's like we've known each other for years and stuff like that. Like, it's amazing.
When we met, I was just like, why do I feel like this man is like my brother? Like, I have been talking to him like forever. Like he know me,
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. So I work all day and then come home and work the children in the house. That's something I wanted to speak on. Mm-hmm. So I want to add to it, because see, I'm not married. I'm not married to a physical husband. So I have not found in scripture like that the woman is required to like do all the cooking and the cleaning and the taking care of the household thing. Like I haven't seen that just like very specific in the scripture. I'm not saying that that's not what we should do, but like when I read, I'm just not finding them things, and I feel like people use it as an excuse to come up with their own ideologies as to what specifically a wife or a husband is supposed to be doing. But my thought process is that if we're supposed to be one, you do what you can and are best at doing, and I do what I can and am best at doing. And it may not be housework. It may not be. You might be better with the kids than I am. Mm. That is completely feasible. That you are better with the children than I am. So shouldn't you be? You know what I mean? So I just want to know what you think about that.
Well, straight up, it's about conversation. It's about communication. Once again, it's about not dating, and that be one of the first things that you talk about. Like, straight up, what is it that you want to do? What is it that you're called to do? How many children do you want to have? How do you feel a child should be brought up? What are some things that you were raised with that you probably not gonna get away from, and just certain things that you like. For example, I don't necessarily do it anymore, not because it's because we really be traveling more than anything else. So I actually am gotten kind of terrible at cooking now. I used to, we used to split it up, and sometimes, like especially when I wasn't necessarily vegan, but I was pretty close. I would only eat meat every other Sunday, so to keep that up, like if that was gonna be my diet, I made sure I made all the meals. I went to the store, I got the stuff, um, and also too, because at one point, like I said, my wife was pulling in. She was basically the heavy majority, the heavy lifting by far of what we were making at one point. Period. So but those are things that we talked about, but also too, like when my wife and I, before we, laid down with each other, got married and stuff like that, we I even used to help out with her laundry because I just like doing laundry. Like, so I actually used to fold laundry and stuff. I do the military fold and everything from when I was in boot camp. So my stuff be like, I don't like it when other people don't fold my stuff to where I can put like everything. Like when I go on trips, I can put like 10 outfits in like this little book bag because I know how to fold the stuff. So I like to do my laundry so I can make sure it's there. So I did her laundry. She did it slightly different. So I learned how she rolled things versus how I folded things. But I like doing dishes, even if we don't have a dishwasher. So I don't mind. I don't necessarily always cook, but at one point I'd cook, clean, do everything, and then I do the dishes and stuff because I'm okay with doing dishes. But it depends on what you go into, and you also got to talk that stuff through. But I think there's nothing. You're right. There's nothing in the word that says women have to cook. Matter of fact, if you look at stuff, I mean, for example, how did Israel get their birthright? Because we knew how to cook. The male knew how to cook. I mean, I hate to use that as an example, but I mean, it's an example, right? Like, so there's no problem with men being great cooks. Matter of fact, he didn't ask, Isaac could have been like, hey babe, make me my last meal. Say no. He said, go get Esau. He said Esau know how to do that thing in the kitchen, like have him hook it up with the with my favorite meal or whatever, and then they tricked him, of course. But there's things that you should talk through. So yeah, I think it's totally acceptable, but it's something we don't talk about. Once again, it's not our culture, it's not ours. Like, it's somebody else's culture. Women are supposed to be doormats, do this and this and this, and men really go out to be powerful and in charge. But women are supposed to sit back in somebody else's culture and not do anything. In our culture, it's totally acceptable for men. It was totally acceptable for women to fight. I mean, it was totally, like we have a different mentality. Like, people be like, yes, in World War I, women started to go out there. In World War II, especially during the Great Depression, they started to really work and stuff like that and get jobs. It's like women used to be queens for us. Our women been fighting. And yeah, they got the Amazon thing from our women, like, and Cushite women. And we had Deborah who would go out. We wouldn't even go to battle unless she was there. Like, so this whole mindset of this stuff, this is new. It's chattel slavery stuff. It's not even how we start. Like, even women having somebody last, like my wife used to be like, oh, I'm not sure how I'm gonna like, having your last name, blah blah. I was like, that's not in my culture. I was like, you don't have to change nothing. I was like, if you want to be who you've been since you was born or whatever, or who your people were or whatever, like, we don't change last names. Like, that's not me. But but if that's something that you do, or that's something that y'all like, or you're cool with, you do. But you talk things through. There's, believe it or not, there's men out there that think it's weird that you want to change your last name. So we just make an assumption that that's there, but we once again, we're not in tune with our own culture. So, but yeah, going back to stuff like me personally, I have no problem. Like, I just finished doing laundry a couple times, or well, once this week. Actually, I was busy. I just finished doing laundry this week. Some of the people I was talking to on the phone this week, I was talking to y'all and having to apologize because you could hear all the stuff in the background. Matter of fact, I didn't even use the place in the house here because sometimes the dog is in the laundry room here, so I don't even feel like dealing with it. So sometimes I'll just pay a little extra and just go to the laundromat. And so I had to apologize to people because I was at the laundromat. But I don't. So I think it just depends. There's some guys who maybe haven't been taught to do those things, or they think that it has to be. And sometimes there's some sisters that think that every guy is looking for that. I promise you, there's a lot of guys that are okay making your meal, massaging your shoulders, rubbing your feet, doing whatever, But like,
my father used to do a lot of the cooking, honestly, in our house. whenever, honestly, I had to do like we had a bake sale at school or something like that. I remember one time we had a cultural, we were doing our genealogies. And so she was like, bring a dish, that represents like your background, where your family comes from. Well, my mama was already gone to work. It was, but by the time I got up to go to school, my mother was already gone for work. So who gonna cook? Well, my dad. He was like, I was like, I need something for class. He was just like, well, what do you need? So something that just represents my culture, my family. He's like, go get dressed. I'll be back. This man baked me a whole 3-layer cake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, just these ideologies. And then I think about even like when you look at the Proverbs 31 woman, and it's talking about all this stuff that she is doing. And she was like, and it was like, she made, they talk about how great she is while her husband is sitting and chilling at the gates. So
yeah.
What is he doing? Is he just sitting around with the fellas? I'm like, I got the best wife in the world.
Well, that's not exactly how it works. That's not exactly how it works, but I guess some people might think that's how it works. And saying that his name will be known, right? And he'll be there at the gates or whatever, but it's talking about basically, her actions or whatever. People will speak well of him, especially when it comes to how, people talk about him in the city. But a lot of that was reversed too. Like a lot of people don't think, for example, sometimes roles will be what we call reverse, especially in different how you live too, because just because we all lived in the same place doesn't mean we all had the same status or we all did the same stuff. So let's say Maya and I are living back then, maybe she might go to get the water at the well. Now somebody would be like, why would you send your wife to get the water at the well? Well, there's also a scripture that tells you, where your where your heart is, or where your treasure is, that's where your heart is, where you bury it. And it also says, be careful that you aren't making treasures out of things and burying them, like things that are in the world where they get corrupted and moths come by and all this stuff and they get rusted. It's talking about that because people would literally bury their treasures. If they lived in a tent, they would basically bury the treasure under the house. It was the safest spot for it. So sometimes the man wouldn't leave the house, at least not at certain times, because he was there to protect the treasure. So the wife might leave. So the wife might leave to get some stuff done, and he might take care of some of the stuff at the house, or be at the house, or even. And being at the house is relative, because what if they had a bunch of land? They just had a tent on the land, but they got a bunch of land. So he could be taking care of a bunch of stuff on the land, but he has to be close enough to the house that if somebody tries to steal, or he finds out somebody trying to even dig under to get the stuff, he could be around. Or if somebody tried, to come with weapons, that his wife's not going to be there by herself. Yeah, that he could be the one to protect it. So even when they talk about this stuff, it's like a different context. So like the husband, when his wife is sent off to get the water, even there, they still would more than likely probably have had certain servants that would have went with her that were trusted to make sure that nothing would happen to her. Meanwhile, he's going to be there at the house, and making sure that he's there with some other people to make sure that what his family has obtained can't just be stolen overnight. So even when you hear some of that stuff, it's like, but yeah, she goes, but also too, it doesn't just talk about the things she's doing. It says that she has her own business, but once again, we're not even thinking about who it's talking about. See, like we forget that even in the Proverbs 31 woman, it's Proverbs 31, you got to go back to Proverbs 31 verse 1. This is Solomon, who's wrote out something based off of what his father David has taught him, and his mother Bathsheba as well, but he focuses more so on what David, his father, has taught him. And Solomon is sitting there saying stuff like, and he's given a story that his father knows about a king whose father had passed away, so now he's going to be king. And his mother, who's a queen, is telling her son in Proverbs 31, 1-9, hey, you out here, you're going to be a king, but you need a wife. You need somebody going to do this and blah, blah. You can't be getting in trouble with this, and don't bringing no girls to act like blah, blah, whatever. And then then she puts such a high standard up that it seems like, how you going to find a wife? And in the midst of her talking, it's like, in her being a woman and being a mother and being a queen and being a wife, and her miss, she can tell, oh, I'm bringing this thing really high up, but she doesn't bring the standard down. But she says, well, who can find such a virtuous woman? That's when it starts. We start there, but she actually started saying, right. Like, and so she's setting it up, and he's just looking at her as a son. He would have been looking at her like, Mom, what are you like? look, I'm a king. I can get anybody and blah, blah. Like, why? And you setting the standard even for a king that seems to be too much. But she's saying, you're going to be a king. Kings can't settle for blah, blah. And she said, but just in case you don't think, who can find her? So this is what you need to find in your wife. And then she starts saying, so even though the wife is doing this and doing that, there's not just talking about any man. It's talking about he a king. So we have even this mindset where it's like, well, my man this and my man blah blah. And it's like she wasn't talking about just a man. She wasn't talking about somebody you just dating. She wasn't talking about somebody that got muscles. She's talking about somebody who's royalty, who's been trained since since before he came out of his mother's womb. His whole life was in training for this moment. And she's like, so you've been in training your whole life, like we talked about with the pearl. You've been growing a pearl inside you your whole life. Why would you get married to a pig? So let's find you a virtuous woman. Let's find you somebody else who got a pearl. This is what she needs to be on your level. If you're going to be a king and that's what you're going to present to her, then you shouldn't accept anything less, at least than da 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 da. That's when she starts listening to stuff up at Proverbs 31:10. And it ends, and by the way, Proverbs ends with the virtuous woman, which means as much as people act like in our culture we put women last, so to speak, we actually went from talking about fathers and mothers and instruction and law and all these things and making sure that you find a wife and obtain favor from the Lord. And we made our way all the way to the end, to where at the end of the day, every king needs somebody that's a queen, which means that you got to be a king in order to get a queen. So so in our mentality, once again, when we come from somebody else's culture, we're thinking about that scripture completely different. When Solomon pins that out in his mind, he's thinking, this is what a king deserves. So I must be a king in order to have a virtuous woman. This is what a virtuous woman is looking for. So she must be a virtuous woman in order to have a king. Like that's the mentality that he's thinking about. So it's a whole different thing. But yeah, so going back to what you were saying, yeah, there is no nothing in the Bible that says men cannot cook, women have to cook all the meals, stuff like that. That's somebody else's culture. And really, in other people's cultures, they be wilding out too, because it ain't theirs either. You know what I'm saying? Where women have to do all this stuff. Like when you look at it, there are certain women that do it, but like in Japan, or is it Japan? I think I'm saying the right culture. In Japan, when you're dealing with geisha girls, yeah, but they're supposed to even not really be women as much as like kind of sexual like dolls. They're not really women. Like they're not really wives. They're just kind of servants. So if that's what you're looking for, you can get a geisha girl, and there's probably a girl that finds that being okay. But that's not the majority of women in Japan. They're not doing that. Or you might think, oh yeah, Asian women just bow down, blah blah. But find you a Korean woman and talk to a Korean husband and hear what happens when the Korean husband mess up and how she acts. There are certain things that are expected. And so we have this mindset that everybody, talk to a British woman, a British woman on the street, and see what happens when her husband act a fool. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't live by that standard. Like we were saying earlier, they don't really live by these standards that we think that they automatically live by. But especially when it comes out, now this is where we can learn something as well. When they come out together, they together. Like you're not going to just know, oh, the Chinese woman might talk about her husband and yell at him in Chinese, but you don't know what she's saying. And when it's time for them to come out together, yeah, and when they come out together, we husband and wife. And even if they just have a business relationship only, they don't even really sleep with each other. They live, then seriously, some cultures, they sleep in separate beds, like the Cosby Show and all that. No, the Cosby Show, they didn't do this. Sorry. What is it? Leave It to Beaver or something. I don't know what shows. Not Leave It to Beaver. I don't know. Y'all know the shows, the old school shows where they slept in separate beds, whatever. I can't remember off the top of my head now. Like I Love Lucy and stuff like that. Yeah. There are actually cultures where they sleep in separate beds and don't even necessarily even mess with each other anymore. But they still husband and wife, as far as you know. They come out, everything's still there. They still hold hands if necessary. They still put that smile on. They still do it up because we supposed to be in line. And we used to do that too. Like we got this thing where we mix it up. You think that your grandparents didn't love each other sometimes because you thought they were fighting all the time in front of you, even when they did fight in front of you, and you thought they didn't like each other because, or they didn't love each other because they didn't always like each other. But I had a grandmother and grandfather, seemed like they couldn't stand each other. My grandmother didn't even visit my grandfather in the hospital when he was getting ready to pass the last few months, but she would always send word, and she would find out he was eating right, and she would send her children. And they'd be like, Mama said, I'd go with them and they'd be like, Mama said that you got, and he would straighten up just at the mere mention of her name. he would like sit up in the bed because he had heard that she sent word. Like, so we had this mindset where like and love are the same thing. And I'm not necessarily trying to have that relationship where I'm fighting with my wife all the time, but I'm just saying like they knew that we have to make this work and that we have to be an example. And even behind the scenes, they still were together. They still were doing things, even if we didn't see it. And even when we come over as grandchildren, they put the petty stuff aside because we got to play with the grandchildren. We need them to see us working united as one. Like that stuff doesn't matter as much. We could learn something from that. But once again, they had a specific vision. Like they had a specific thing. Like they prayed for preachers. So guess what my family is full of on that side? Right? Like they put that in us and instilled that in us. And even if we saw craziness that we now know was craziness, like we didn't really get afflicted by that. We didn't catch that, like, and so there's certain things. So I'm just saying we have a responsibility and we can do it, and we can show people that it's actually possible. Like we said, we think that we're so far removed from being husbands and wives, and that was protocol. And look, there were children that were on the side and everything. Like I didn't know about it. Like I grew up and then was like, wait a minute, like I have an auntie, but she's not my auntie. Like, hold on, what's going on? Oh, she's a half auntie. Oh, okay. So she was, like, but had no clue. And everybody grew up together, and all that stuff, was going to people's homes for whole summers and had no clue this was not really family, but it was family. Had cousins that were not even blood, but because there was so much messing around, we just treat them like cousins. Like you just grew up loving each other, and you didn't know any better. Yeah, it had no clue until you get older, and then you go to these funerals, and you get older, and you're like, wait a minute, why isn't Uncle so and so here? Oh well, that was one of Uncle so and so's blah blah from a long time ago. Then that's not really his baby. Yeah, but blah blah blah. Oh, okay, well, whatever. At this point, whatever. That's still my family. Like we here. What you need. It's that's Auntie's funeral. That's still Titi. You know what I'm saying? We don't separate it. So it's the same thing. We have to get back to what is our standard, and our standard was never. Men don't have to cook. Women have to be barefoot, buck naked in the kitchen, and all that foolishness that people say. That's not. You won't find it in scripture. Just like walking down the aisle, you won't find it in scripture. Just like women not being able to wear earrings and stuff, you can't find it in scripture. And if you do, it has nothing to do with us. Like there's just stuff that people put. Women having to be covered, and you can only see this much of their eyes. Like you won't find it in scripture. You won't find in scripture where a woman can't find her ankles.
People were talking about that, about the being covered, and I immediately they were like, "Oh, your hair's supposed to always be covered." And I was like, I'm sorry. When Tamara covered her head, he thought she was a prostitute. I am not trying to be confused. So
yeah, well, even with that, she had a specific type of covering too. But even with that though, when it says to cover, and that's something else too, because people say cover your head, but then it's like, okay, what kind of covering? If we want to be actual, because a lot of people can't even tell you, like, that different age women cover their heads differently. So, like we don't even talk about that. Like if you go into your culture, 2-year-old before some 2-year-olds can walk, or some less than 2-year-olds can walk, they know how to wrap their head. Like, so do you even know how to wrap your head? Or are you just saying cover your head? And also too, depending on the context, because a lot of times cover your head is talking about in prayer, cover your head. Like, so it's not even talking about a physical covering. But once again, I leave that because there's some sisters that you feel comfortable doing whatever, or you feel like wearing it for aesthetic.
That's what you feel led to do.
Yeah.
What does he say? That's not necessarily our code. That's not our. That's not a commandment. That's not necessarily our culture. But if that is how you are led, do you? Ain't no sin in it. Yeah. There's no sin in it. But Sister Monica said something that I was thinking about as well. She was like, but in our culture, doesn't the wife have their own portion of the house? And I had been starting to do, and I blame Shonda Rhimes, I admit that. But I had been doing a study on monarchy and kingdom and culture, because honestly, like, I'm trying to prepare myself to be a queen, not just merely a wife. I'm trying to be a queen. So I need to carry myself in a particular way.
Well, a wife should be a queen, yeah.
What'd you say?
No, I was just saying a wife should be a queen.
Absolutely. But there's a scene from in Queen Charlotte where they have separate bedrooms, and that was quite often, honestly, during that time, where there is a master's bedroom, and then there is, the queen had her own bedroom, and I was like, yeah, because she got her own personal things that she has to handle. If she needs to be set apart because it's her time.
Yeah.
She needs to have a place to be able to go and do that.
Yeah, I've never. Yeah,
when you were saying that, like on I Love Lucy and whatever, when they wouldn't show them in the same bed, and I was like, it's not always feasible for you to sleep in the same bed with a person. If they sleep well, if they, it could be a myriad of reasons as to why you don't want to sleep in the same bed with a person. Not because y'all fight, but because it just a little more comfortable.
Well, I mean, yeah, well, it's natural, but that's something we've talked about that plenty of times before. There's a such thing as a man. I haven't seen the Queen Charlotte thing, but I know who Queen Charlotte is. So I don't know the fictional. I know there's 2 different series or something about that about her and King George, but yeah, but my wife, she knows about it. If she was here, she could tell about it. I don't know anything about it, but she's but yeah, that was something that was normal if you could afford it, obviously. But yeah, if you could be in a position to afford it, you would want to have a place that would be for the husband, that would be for the wife. And the wife could be able to go to a place. Sometimes it was because of her menstrual cycle and things like that. Also, sometimes it was just, especially when you're dealing with stuff as far as on their level, sometimes it's because you need to get away from each other. Truth be told, or sometimes also too, a lot of people don't know, we don't do this anymore. I don't know if they show this in the show. Once again, I don't know what the show is. I don't think this is British cultures or even the Scottish culture that she came from or something like that. But she was really African and all that. But basically, there's also times where you go through purification even when you're married. So there's supposed to be times where you're not even in the same room, you're not even having sex, you're supposed to actually purify yourselves. That's when Paul talks about fasting, he's not just talking about food. When he says you have to, if you read it carefully, you'll see it's kind of being insinuated if you need to fast, you need to get permission from your spouse. You can't fast without your spouse's permission. You're going through something, you're like, I need to purge myself and purify myself physically. I can't just do it without your permission. I don't belong to myself, so I have to get permission. So we might even have a room to where you can go for a little bit if I'm a fast for a month. Then there's things that I can go ahead and do or whatever. Also, too, as part of even with Esther, right? You remember Esther, and she had to for a year before she could even be brought before the king to see if he would even say, okay, I want you to be my wife. She had to have a place of her own. She couldn't be with the king. The king couldn't touch her, she couldn't touch the king. So those are things that are actually natural that we don't think about, because a lot of us even think about, and I'm not saying what you do and what you don't do in your own relationship is what you do. But a lot of people are thinking well, we're not having sex all the time, but it's not even actually physically accurate that you would have a cycle where you would want to be having sex every single day. It doesn't, men and women both go through cycles, and they both have to go through a position. Men are even supposed to have periods too, but they don't go through what you would call a period, or not a period, but excreting stuff like the semen, basically getting to a certain place to where it has to get out on its own, even if you don't touch yourself or whatever. Men have to go through a period like that too. So we don't even allow men to get to a place to where he can be cleansed from the inside out, because everybody's so quick about always thinking about sex and this and that or whatever. But yeah, both men and women actually need time to have an opportunity, whether you're married or not, to actually purify, fast. I don't know if I want to put all the details out there, but men's genitalia goes back to certain positions when they get a chance to not be touched for a while, and women's genitalia goes back to certain positions when it hasn't been touched. You actually get purified. Your body says, okay, we fasted, we can go back to restoration. Yeah, we can be restored. So like, so even in that, when you're talking about the separate bedrooms, there's a plethora of reasons. Sometimes it could just be because you might need a break from each other, and you can still kiss each other, say I love you and everything, and lay down and don't go to bed angry and everything. You can still lay down and do what you gotta do, and then get up the next day, and y'all can be back in the master bedroom. Or who knows, maybe y'all have realized it's foolish y'all are fighting in the first place, and you'll get up and go into the other bedroom anyways. But we should think about those things, you know. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that comes with it when you start getting deeper into the culture. We just make a certain assumptions and stuff like that, but there's a lot of stuff where, um, you know, we should kind of be changing our mindset on stuff. But I know I'm holding you. I'm holding y'all a little late now at this point. I see it's 10:16 my time. I know it's 9:16 minutes of Tamara's time.
When you be getting into the word and the culture now.
Amen. And I gotta get on the road tomorrow too. So we got all this stuff we got to do. So I'm not gonna hold y'all too much longer. But thank you again to Minister Tamara for coming on. As always, we appreciate you when you come on. And please, if you don't follow her at Minister Tamara _Yah9. That's TAMARA _YAH, the number 9. She's live every Wednesday, definitely, and also comes on a lot of other people's lives that she's invited, and also has some stuff that she posts. So feel free to follow her. And we thank you for your presence tonight. Thank you for being on. As always, I'm Pastor Kofi. Please check out my wife, the Honorable Maya, on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And we thank you for being on. Until next time we have a chance to be before you guys again, please remember, as always, that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shabbat shalom, family. Peace.